Welcome, everybody. Maybe duplicating here, but welcome to the La Plata Electric Association board meeting for April 17th. Let's go ahead and start off the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call the meeting to order. First thing is approval of agenda or comments on the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, John. Moved and seconded. I do have one proposed modification to the agenda. I would like to see us add a staff update on CTP in executive session. So in executive session, in addition to a attorney update on FERC and related actions, I would propose that we add a B CTP update.
Second.
Any objections to that change? All right, well, then we have a motion and a second and a proposed change, and I'll go ahead and take a vote on approving that modified agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we have an agenda set. Let's move into the next section of the agenda, member comments and concerns. Would you please read the preamble?
Thank you, Ted. The board encourages comments about the cooperative from its members. The board will take all member comments under consideration, but it will not provide a response during the member comment period. The board asks each participant's comments pertain to cooperative business. Those wanting to address the board during the public comment period are granted 5 minutes to address their topics. Lengthy comments to the board should be submitted in writing. Formal complaints must be filed in writing and submitted in compliance with applicable board policy. Comments from the public will be directed to the entire board and not to any individual. No personal attacks shall be allowed. Failure to follow these requirements may cause the public comment period to be terminated. Copies of our cooperative policies and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available on the cooperative website.
Great, thank you. I see we have welcome to members in attendance, and I see we have at least one hand up in the on the Zoom. And I'm just going to go to Zoom first, if that's okay. Lori, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
And Lori?
Okay, I have been a member of La Plata Electric and living in the area for 31 years. And I'm super thrilled to have such a proactive board now. And I just want to commend you for deciding to leave Excel, whatever it is, anyway, and to go our own way. And but I am against the shutting down parts of the city of Durango for solar on their roofs. And I think that's counterproductive and counterintuitive to what we're working towards. And rooftop solar is already there. We don't have to disturb any ground. We don't have to do anything. We need to let and encourage people to get rooftop solar as much as possible, so that and also we have a lot of businesses here that provide that service, and it's a disservice to them to block a huge swath of the city from getting solar panels. And I just want to say that, I'm in the process. I was the very last person to put an array on my house. I'm on Riverview Drive, and I'm in the process of, I just put an electric heat pump water heater in my house, and my final thing is the mini splits, and I'm in the process of getting those installed. And then I will be 100% electric. And I feel that this is what we need to be working towards for the environment and to save our members money, just all around a win-win. And we need to keep our solar and alternative energy local. Do not, sign up with companies that are out of our area. I mean, we have plenty of availability of people and businesses that can provide this solar in our area on our rooftops and our barns. And, that's what we should be working towards. So, and I also would like to say that, I think La Plata Electric should work with members to do fire mitigation, and we should be putting lines underground. We should not be running any more lines overhead because of the wildfire risk. We should be doing everything possible to bury the lines. And if customers and members want to bury their lines, that La Plata Electric should be, right there, being a 50-50 member with that. And also helping with fire mitigation, that you can be a big partner in that, helping people find their way through of getting fire mitigation for their properties. And anyway, that's all I have to say. I think you guys are all doing a great job. And I just would like to really encourage you to not block more solar production in town. That's the wrong way to go. And whatever needs to be done to alleviate that issue, we need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lori, for your comments and your participation today. Okay, back into the room, and we'll start over on this end. Give us your name and sort of where you live or what district.
Dick Wrights, I'm up in Sky Ridge. When I built my house, I never contemplated putting solar panels on it. Unfortunately, it's not a very good design for doing things like that. So I'm really encouraged by the fact that you guys are thinking about solar gardens. I'm really looking forward to your first installation. I hope I can get to participate. I do think cost effective. It's a much more cost-effective way to put in solar than all these individual houses, and hopefully would also kind of get away from this issue where you got too much power in one area before your system may handle and have to put money in to redo that. So again, thank you for the solar garden project. Please look at doing more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dick. Mark.
Hi, thank you. I'm Mark Pearson. I'm a LPEA member in Living District 4, and appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys this morning. And I mostly just wanted to express sort of my enthusiasm about your new adventure you've embarked on in the next evolution of LPEA, and just kind of highlight some of the resources that are available around here. And just across the state line in New Mexico, there's a bunch of big projects underway. BYLAW Renewable Investments, I think we talked about in the past, has big project, San Juan Solar one that's under construction right now and should go operational in the next month or two, which is just north of Kirkland, down the Plata Highway on the old haul road from the old coal mine that went over to the power plant there. And that's a project that'll be dedicated to Public Service Company in New Mexico for all their power. But there's then BYLAW has a second project. They just signed a lease agreement with the Ute Tribe on adjacent property there that would be right on the state line, right adjacent to LPEA service territory. And that one is another 170 megawatts, and Los Alamos, the Los Alamos Power Pool has contracted for that output, but they only need 90 megawatts out of the 170. So they're trying to farm out the remainder of it. So it's a power purchase agreement that's going to go to Los Alamos, and that should be under construction sometime this year. So it's a great opportunity, I think, for LPEA to find some nearby resources right adjacent to LPEA territory. And the Ute Mountain Utes have really invested and gone whole hog into solar energy as an economic development opportunity for them. They have another big project called Sun Bear, which is 1,000 megawatts, which is south of Toyac, and they're talking about starting construction in November, but there doesn't seem to really be, there's not announced customers for that one yet. So it seems like that's another great opportunity to partner with the tribes to find local energy supplies. So I just wanted to flag that. And then I think also just to highlight the fact that the Southern Utes are, some of the most accomplished energy developers in our region. And there's, I think, tremendous opportunities to partner with the Southern Utes on any kind of energy development projects to find local sources of supply in our region. So just encourage you guys to think about how we can work with our communities here and our partners. And remember, the world doesn't end at the state line. There's other things happening just across the state line in New Mexico. And there's another big project, San Juan County's talking about $1 billion industrial revenue bond for a 300 megawatt solar project west of San Juan generating station called Shiprock. So yet another big solar project right in our backyards here that can certainly play a part in fulfilling the future needs, I think, of LPEA's energy supply. And the other, that Foxtail Flats project, the one going to Los Alamos, they're paying 3.8 cents a kilowatt hour for that. So it's, way less than what we're paying by state. So if you're figure out if you pay less for your power and, you have a big margin there to help fund, paying off your contract with Tri-State. And so I think folks, what Kit Carson and Delta Montrose and United, I'm sure are a great pool of people to be comparing notes with and figuring out what they're doing and, learn from their lessons going forward. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming in today. Another one.
Hi, my name is Emily. I live in District 3. And I'm also here on behalf of myself and Inland Systems Alliance, which is a local nonprofit with 5,000 supporters, majority of whom are in LPEA territory. So on behalf of all of us, we are all really excited and want to support and gratitude for the Tri-State exit. I'm really glad that you all made the decision that is best for the co-op and its members. With Tri-State increasing its rates this year, I was really concerned that LPEA was going to continue to buy expensive energy. And so I'm very glad that the decision was not continue to move forward. And also, Tri-State has a negative credit rating, as we all know. So that it shows that they're not a reliable business partner going into the future. Finally, I think the other huge benefit of leaving Tri-State is that they were governed by over 40 other co-op members across 4 states, which prevents local governance over our electric supply. So I'm really excited to see LPEA take control over its own power supply and secure affordable, sustainable energy for our community. You all receiving the $13.4 million PACE loan to grow the Sunnyside project is a really good first step towards that. And I'm really eager to hear more about what LPEA plans for the future of our energy supply. I'd like to suggest that you all host some more town halls where I can provide my input and the rest of the community can provide community input onto the next steps of this power agreement. We've got 2 years, so it's imperative that we start that and that LPEA members have a voice in that process. So as a member of LPEA, I just want to say I'm really glad to see you all as our co-op move towards affordable and sustainable energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. I think that's it. I saw another hand on the Zoom, but I do see one again. Let's go back to the Zoom. Brian, we see you and you have the floor.
Hello, my name is Brian Rogers. I'm an LPEA member in District 3. First, I want to say thank you for filing the exit Tri-State. I believe and fully support that was the best decision for our members, and I know a difficult one for you all to make with lots of factors. But with Tri-State increasing rates and so much concern about continuing to buy expensive and dirty energy, along with a negative credit rating, it just seemed that Tri-State was no longer reliable, and you all made that decision. And I think most importantly in that is, us moving towards a local governance for our own electric supply, as we are able to move towards, making decisions to find energy solutions that fit our objectives. So I'm excited to see LPEA take control over the energy supply and secure affordable, sustainable energy for our community. And in that, I believe that the Sunnyside project is a great first step towards that goal. And I'm like eager to hear what you all come up with moving forward for plans for energy supply as we leave our contract with Tri-State. And yeah, just want to suggest that more town halls are creating to provide input so that LPEA members have a voice in our next steps. Yeah, thank you all so much for what you're doing and appreciate your work. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot for joining us today, Brian. Hey, I think that's it, yeah? I don't see anyone else.
Where do people, sorry, I didn't mean to speak on.
Go ahead, Tim.
I mean, I just try to find the Zoom link for this. I'm not sure where it is. It's not in our agenda. So I'm just curious how people find that, and if we highlighted that more, maybe more people can find it soon. Just a comment.
Under advisement, for sure. I think we do have some answers to that, but more can be better.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else before we close out member comment? All right, let's move on to consent board items. Is there anything in there that any directors want clarity on, or anything that we'll start with that? Fuller?
Yeah, so I have two of the items I would like a little clarity or a little wordsmithing if I could. Should I start with that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So the first one is the regular board meetings, and it's on page 2 of 26, the minutes.
On the minutes,
Yeah,
Cole?
the minutes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry. And under the in-person attendees, Karen Zink's name is missing. She was here at that and also spoke. Then on page 3, under the attorney update on FERC actions, it would be the second paragraph and the second line, and it says, Attorney Larson summarized the numerous filings. I think we should take out the second numerous, the word numerous on that line. That's it for the minutes. And then if we go down to page 12 on the monthly write-offs, I noticed that more than a third of the write-offs had no capital patronage capital. So I'm assuming that those are probably fairly new accounts. And the question I have is, are we still requiring a deposit for new accounts when they start up? And how long are those deposits held before they're refunded? And then are they used before these figures come to us? Do they use that deposit and then this is what's left over afterwards? So a couple questions on that, please.
We do have our policies that address that. It might be easier if I could sort of look into those policies, get you the citation of those policies, and I'll provide the entire board answer to those questions in
And
writing.
that's fine, because it's just curious. I have no objection to
And you feel like, Graham, that what's in there is accurate based on the
Yeah,
policy.
and our staff follows those policies when it comes to deposits and the order of collections and things like that.
Yeah, and I was just wondering if that's already included in there. It's not an objection to what's showing up. I was just wondering why you have so many of them that don't have capital built up. And I would guess if it all new, there'd be no other real reason not to have any kind of patronage. So,
Well, I mean, I think one of the short answers to that is that we deduct from the patronage first to, I'll look into I'll get you the more detailed answer.
yeah, and I understand you deduct first. It doesn't even show it. They have it to deduct from. So, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, so to me, that sounds like one modification to the minutes. Well, two modifications to the minutes, but one suggestion to modify the minutes.
And I believe Tim gave us a modification to the minutes. Those are already taken.
Okay, so anything else to ask for clarification? And then we'll take a motion to approve the full consent board with those minutes modifications. But if there's anything else, let's bring it up.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, move to approve. Kohler move to approve the consent board.
Second.
second from Joe, so a motion to approve and second. Any more discussion on that? Right, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, passes. Moving on to agenda item number 4, CEO and staff reports, and interim CEO Graham, just take it away.
Thank you. Right, so we're starting to get ready for our 85th anniversary, as you can see, and so kind of pay attention to the truck in the background there. We'll probably be seeing some of us make reference to that logo as we lead into this 85th anniversary celebration, which will hopefully be able to time pretty closely with our annual meeting in September. So we'll get a lot of more historical photographs for you guys in the day. So 1 month as CEO, all green check marks, done, right? I'm gonna have to give credit to my predecessor because, right, this is March, right? And so she was the CEO for half of this. So, but yeah, we're meeting all of our metrics. Things are off to a great start through the end of the first quarter. And things are really looking good. Anybody have any questions on this particular slide? All right, well, let's get into some more of the details. Be safe and excellent in all we do. You know, we had, as Polly can attest, we had a Ghost Arc demo over in Archuleta County. Those things are always exciting. And if you haven't seen one yet, we'll try and we have them open to the public. We'll try and give an invite to you guys in the neighborhood so you can come by and check it out. We have, you know, along our member concern about what we're doing for wildfire preparation. We're doing an awful lot, and hopefully keep the board fairly informed on what all we're doing. But one thing that we did do this last month was have a tabletop drill where we went through our organizational response to a wildfire and how that would happen, right? It was, this particular response was not a LPEA caused wildfire, it was a independent wildfire, but, you know, still need to kind of know what we're gonna do. So, you know, we train on these things repeatedly, not just sort of prevent wildfire, which we spend a lot of time on, but also training on how we're gonna respond. So it doesn't feel like our first time, if unfortunately, whatever happens. We are up to snuff on our NERC compliance, and everything is going according to plan with that. Our compliance portion of Elizabeth's department is all over all that sort of compliance obligations. No cyber incidents. We've migrated our email protection solution, give us another layer of protection. And continuing to work on our cost of service study interviews, construction workflow enhancements, and field mapping software. Yeah, Sean.
Just backing up to the NERC question, and I got sort of lost in some of the details. Maybe Dan, you can speak to this. The current limitations on building solar down certain lines was originally, I'm asking the question of what was the primary driver of that? My understanding was it was originally, it's really a compliance and safety issue, and that was driven by NERC. But when I was doing some background reading, it was left that maybe that I wasn't sure of that. Could you offer some visibility into that?
Sure. Yeah, not a NERC thing.
Okay.
That where NERC does come into play, maybe generation at a larger scale that exceed the point that solar starts feeding back into the bulk electric system, then it becomes a NERC thing.
Okay.
With our feeders that we're looking at right now, it's just simply a matter of more generation than there is load at on an hour by hour basis. And so we have to be careful that it could be a NERC issue if there was so much solar that it does backfeed through the substation onto the transmission system and hit the bulk electric system. But at this point, let's not let it be a NERC issue. where we are.
Thank you. So then what is the driver?
It's a Colorado PUC regulation, right? So the Colorado PUC has interconnection standards, and one of their standards that they have a screening process that's illuminated in the Colorado Code of Regulations. And one of those screening standards is can't exceed 100% of minimum daytime load. Is that right? Yeah, I can't exceed 100% of minimum daytime load. And so when we're kind of over 90% on a certain circuit, we need to sort of be mindful of what this new load is going to add, and is it going to push us over that 100%. To the sort of federal, there is a lot of that the Colorado Public Utilities Commission has taken from FERC instead of NERC, right? And so there's that, it's sort of FERC has a lot of the sort of smaller interconnection rules as opposed to NERC, which has the Norfolk Electric System interconnection rules. So if you go to those Colorado regulations, you should see some references to CFR, the federal regulations, and those are promulgated by FERC.
Great. So two more questions. So are those, is that guidance, meaning a recommendation for sort of a best practice, or is that a you shall comply?
We've taken it to mean that it is a compliance standard that we have to meet.
Okay, and then the last question is, could you after this meeting, perhaps could you send around some of the specifics on that?
Yes, I can get everybody the citation. I get the board the citations to the state regulations.
That'd be great, because I was having trouble in doing background reading. I kept getting redirected all over the place, and I couldn't figure out which one we were resting our head on. Thank you.
Yes.
Good. I have a follow-up on that, and maybe Deanna. So my understanding, and I want to make sure I get this clear, because a lot of people are going to be asking me about this at the Earth Day event this weekend. When the school district and the city brought on a lot of panels, that's what really kind of pushed us over the edge. This is not a problem just from individual homeowners putting on solar panels. Is that?
It all adds together. I mean, there's certainly times that hit larger chunks like that to make a bigger difference. It can tilt the scale immediately. But, you know, typically a daytime load in a house is maybe 1 or 2 kilowatts, and people are putting on 10, 12 kilowatt systems. So obviously there's each home that goes in, there's a lot more generation than there is load. And we can accommodate, you know, so much of that. That's the low hanging fruit that we can serve. But now I need that generation on these spots, you know, all that daytime loaded and served. And we need that generation to be on the outwing.
But I guess what I'm asking is, those big systems that came on, they really did kind of push the system over the edge, or not?
I mean, it could have been that the big system used 85% of the capacity, and then it was the next small one that pushed it over. I mean, it all adds together.
Okay.
You can't just point the finger at any one thing.
Okay.
But big systems move the faster.
Yeah, thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, since we entered the subject, you know, and we continue to get a lot of questions from members in this venue, outside this venue, for several meetings now. It is a big deal to the members, and I don't feel that we have put together a clear and strong communications plan. We ourselves don't even fix things sometimes, right? We need, I think, to take this very seriously and communicate very clearly, consistently, and a lot, what it is that we are responding to. And I think it also should include, you know, why it's needed, what can and can't be done about it, what role the members can play, because they can play a role. and what they can expect from LPA going forward. We're leaving this as a vacuum. And I've not seen this kind of comment for years now, right? So, sorry, I'm gonna step off my soapbox, but it just seems like that's where we have to start. A strong communication plan. Maybe there's one in place that I'm unaware of. If that's the case, we need to see more of it.
Yeah, we need talking points. I haven't, ignoring the politics of it, I haven't gotten hit with this kind of questioning ever.
Right.
But I get picked at it all the time now on this issue. Like random people come up to me, friends, they're not like, hey, how's it going? It's like, what the hell's happening there? What is causing this? It was the basis of my question. So maybe if I could expand my request, not just like the citation, the facts, but maybe to your point, for a handful of talking points in plain English that we could all stay on message and communicate LPA clearly when we get it. Am I the only one getting ambushed? No, we're all getting hit by it. So I think a little coherence, I think, will go a long way.
We'll work on that as soon as we can at the meeting for you.
Good.
Yeah, we can't sort of see on here, but Janelle's telling me that Rachel has her in.
All right.
So,
Rachel, go ahead and give it a try. Can't hear you yet. It looks like you're on mute. There you go. Sorry, we still can't hear you, Rachel.
She can additionally call into the Zoom and be on both video and call at the same time. If you change, there you go. Oh, you are called in. Never mind.
Well, we still can't hear you, Rachel. Yeah, and I saw you wave your hand, so we're gonna move on, but if you just send either myself or Graham a text, and we'll try and get the question answered. All right, moving on then, go ahead, Graham.
any more questions on this slide? Yeah.
Just on the cost of service study, can you remind me of when we're thinking of getting that started, when it will be complete?
Patrick, do you know?
We've received 3 bids from our final 3 firms that we are interested in subcontracting with, evaluating bids now, plan to make a choice in the next 2 weeks, and then we would kick off immediately. As far as data, there's a large data request. That's the first part of the project, so they can start their analysis. So I would expect them to start in May.
And any idea when it will be complete?
By year's end is our target for the actual cost of service study. And then after that, we would start to look at how that informs rate structure of the future. That would be, it's a phase process that all 3 firms have proposed. So rate guidance would be the last phase of that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Holly?
I just want to say thank you to Jerry and the staff for doing the art demonstration in Pagosa. You know, I'd never seen one. And so I learned a ton, and the staff did a really great job. And the quality of the questions coming from the participants told me that they were learning some good stuff, but it makes our whole community safer. These were first responders, what, about 10 or 12 of them. So good job. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a real priority of Jerry's to sort of connect with the first responder community, knowing that sort of they're often the ones that are they're gonna be there before us, and sort of make sure that they stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next slide. Okay, keeping the lights on. Going back to our wildfire mitigation plan again, some of the physical steps we've taken in the field is to install 9 rapid protections on primary dips and replace 23 reject poles. So a lot of work out in the field, especially at this time of year, is sort of aimed towards getting us ready for wildfire season when unfortunately it does come. As far as our capital projects, 24% done through the first quarter is doing pretty well for us, especially the first quarter is typically a slower quarter for us in terms of capital projects. So doing really well, I would say at least on, if not ahead of schedule as far as capital projects. Meeting all of our safety and safety goals for March. 49 unplanned outages, most of which were due to the storm in the beginning of March. Was sort of heavy snow and windy. And then 54 planned outages were primarily for pole change outs. And then as far as making progress on our power supply strategy, we're working with various energy management providers and various supply models. I'll give you guys a little more insight into that during the executive session. But we are making progress on our new power supply strategy. Things are moving fast, and we realize that 2 years isn't a lot of time. So Dan in particular is out there really working hard and fast on that. Continue to pursue local clean power projects. We're making progress on getting Sunnyside wrapped up, and I think the FAC will have a recommendation for you later in this meeting on how we would allocate and subscribe to that. Any questions? Yeah. Sure.
Could we just for the everyone here, how much money people are questioning how much, excuse me, what we're spending on fire mitigation. And I believe in our budget, we've got what, $1 million, $1.2 million or something like that. I'd just like to point that out. So do you,
Jerry, do you remember that line item?
So about 1.25 million.
Okay, and just to point out that we are doing a lot for fire mitigation, and that's not only in the rural areas, but in town too, correct? And then just a question for Jerry. It seems this winter was a lot easier on the crew for problems with all the stuff you run into. Is that?
It was a very mild winter in terms of outages and issues. One thing that I would like to point out, probably shouldn't because I'll jinx myself, but with these high winds that we've had recently, the last 2 months, we haven't had a single tree cause outage, which is a testament to our tree trimming. So it's just awesome.
Very good stuff. Great, thanks.
Sweet. Any other questions on this?
Yeah, on the power supply strategy, I hope that fairly soon we'll get some kind of a chart that shows us what our progression is, what our goals are moving forward. Is that something that's in the works?
Yeah, that is something that we're working on, and sort of the way I'm visualizing it coming out is sort of calling it the railroad golden spike, right? We've got 2 sides of it where you need to smoothly exit tri-state, and we need to build our replacement, and they need to meet in the middle, and on April 1st, 2026, drive a golden spike into there when we cross. So yeah, that's sort of the charts that we're kind of building are on both ends of that movement, and we are working with our project management expertise in-house to get those sort of set up and running.
Good, I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Gold sounds expensive. I think we should go for copper.
Conductor. I just said the same.
Did you?
I did. I just don't want to list this. I don't think we want to go.
Copper's a good conductor.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
All right. Any other questions? No. Improve overall member satisfaction. We're working on our new phone script to streamline delivery of our information during member interactions. We are strengthening our partnerships and increasing stakeholder engagement. Dominic and Dan did some presentations at some Fort Lewis classes. And Monica Vick was able to attend the Young Professionals event and establish a group to enable engagement with other young professionals in the region. So shout out to them. Kind of wanted to identify staff that felt was deserving of some individual kudos and recognize them for that. No updates on our public member engagement. I'll sort of give a little bit of a big picture on that, right? Obviously, we've got a lot of time and effort that's going to be need to spend internally. And so staff are being really judicious about evaluating their speaking requests and presentation requests, especially at sort of industry wide events, national events, industry events. We get a lot of requests to speak at those, and we're being really, really thoughtful about evaluating whether to take that on, considering how much mental energy we're gonna need in-house in the next 2 years. Probably don't expect to see a ton of updates on that over the next few years. We're gonna cut back on what we have previously been doing. Improve our two-way communications with our members. We're starting to pilot our live chat function. A lot of our members are like to work with us through text and chat and functions like that. And then add our two-way communications channel through Nextdoor, right? Sort of moving into different social media platforms requires like verification as a specific like business account and stuff like that. And frankly, the way I view different social medias, each media is its own media, or you need to treat Nextdoor differently from Facebook, differently from X, or differently from any of those channels. So we need to, they're as different as radio and television are. So we've taken steps to have our, what is it called, Amanda, verified?
Verification?
Verifications. We're officially verified business on Nextdoor, which will sort of increase our availability of that platform for communications.
So, going back to, you trust the community partner, and then you mentioned under the target of position LPA as an industry leader through public and member engagement, right? I would suggest that member engagement is actually something we want to increase significantly, not cut back on, and maybe that wasn't where you were going. So I think right now, with the changes that we have made with respect to our power supplier, and that we expect further to change, we need far more member engagement. And when I look at like the solar and moratorium, and then what we're doing in terms of power supply, we need to keep them informed, and we need to hear from them. We need more two-way dialogue. And frankly, almost all of the people who we've heard from in the last 2 or 3 meetings say the same thing. It's not just me. And so, again, I feel like we need a plan that we're executing in this regard. I personally haven't seen one. That doesn't mean there isn't one, and I'm not trying to disparage anyone. And I would say if there's a lack of time and resource to put to this, then we should consider hiring somebody to help us with it, right? There are media consultants that can help us do some of this as well, right? So to me, I just make a plea that we engage a lot more with our members in the next 2 years, not move back from it.
Yeah, and sorry for that sort of misstatement, right? I was focusing on the industry portion of that, right? And that is something that we're going to be intentional about cutting back on. But with member engagement across multiple platforms is something that we have a plan that is definitely being worked on and should be more fully formed by the May meeting, and involves a lot of different communications channels.
Right. I think there's a role for the board there. It's not purely staff, right? We all have to meet. We're directly involved. So I would hope that we could get a draft of a plan that we can all look at and talk with at some point. And all get on page to move forward with that.
So. Rachel has her hand back up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try again. Did this work?
Yes.
I was just, I guess, going to ask the question to Tim's comments and in support of them. But yeah, what is our current plan or the plan to create a plan as it pertains to member engagement and communications around our power supply? Yeah, I know that's been asked for specifically from members, things, and I'm guessing you're on it. So I'd just love to hear what y'all are thinking.
And appreciate Tim's point of sort of having a draft of that, where the board can have some input into that, and we'll have that before the next board meeting, so provide us.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. And I got a text from Janelle that Kirsten had her hand up, but it's down there.
To be answered?
Yeah. Yeah, no, Tim got my points. I put
Okay.
my hand down afterwards.
And Rachel, did we answer your question? We'll get you a draft of a plan in advance of next meeting, so we have
Yeah.
some board input on that.
Okay, sounds good. I just thought maybe there was something in the works already. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to support all of your comments. I've got policy 102 with those specific things highlighted to bring up. So I concur completely with the communication, because our membership also has to know what challenges we're facing. So that's part of the education process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would just, maybe back to Rachel, your sort of current request and the sort of response that you got that I'm interpreting was not yet, not now. And to Graham's point that it's in the works, and, I've had some discussions with Graham regarding this issue and therefore am aware that staff is working on it. That a lot of the points that are being addressed are, I probably haven't asked all the questions, but they are being addressed in, I guess I would just say, proactive and what I believe to be new and different ways, and hopefully there will be better outcomes from new and different ways. So I know I know that's not an answer, but I think the real answer is that staff is aware and acting on these concerns.
I just had a quick point to the statement you made earlier about not using energy to be too externally focused, because there's a limited amount of energy and we've got a lot needed here, which I think is very sound. But I do think that there's a lot that could be gleaned from our certain co-ops that have already gone through this transition.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that
Absolutely, yeah, we are working collaboratively with them, certainly in the preliminary stages, finding out what their best practices are. Yeah, we're in constant sort of I guess I'm sort of categorizing that as more sort of operational towards our end goal as our cooperative, as opposed to, we get a lot of requests for us to have speaking engagements, not just in the community, but across the country. And just trying to be judicious about our time for those sorts of things.
right. That's what I wanted to hear. I assumed you guys were, but I just wanted a day spent with DMEA could save us a week.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And yeah, and so we have very good lines of communications, very good relationships across, not even just internal employees, but also some of their external contractors that they've used moving through this. We have a lot of insight that we're in the information gathering phase right now. But we know we don't have a ton of time to gather that information, so we're working as fast as. Anything else? Patrick, take it away.
I'm gonna move up just because I have a hard time hearing, so.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they have a hard time hearing too.
So with March, we finished the quarter
And we ended the quarter at what would be considered a strong metric, 9.65% operating margins. Revenue was soft though for February and March. We were well off of our targeted budgeted numbers. We finished the quarter down 5% in kilowatt sales and off 2% in electric revenue. That being said, what translates to the better bottom line performance is operating expense variance. So we were better than budget on operating expenses. I expect that variance to diminish quite a bit. Doing a deep dive into the individual budget line items, the areas that have better than budget performance, if you look at them in terms of what the percentage is for the total annual budget, most are coming in around 25%, which is what you would expect in a flat structure for the year, right? We're through the first quarter, so you would expect 25% of that expense to have been spent. So I see most of that budget variance coming to more normal levels, so to speak. We were down a tree trimming contractor, which that essentially delays some of that expense because we didn't have anybody available to do that work, so we didn't spend the money. All that being said, it was positive first quarter. We look good on the balance sheet side of the equation. Cash position is strong, so we hope to maintain that. And we look forward to some positive performance in the next few months, but a little bit more. I would consider, don't bank the extra margins that we have right now. We would expect that to come into more budgeted line, so to speak. Kirsten, that's her hand up.
Yeah, Kirsten, go ahead.
Yeah, Patrick, regarding the operating margin, is that year to date 9.65 or is that for a month? And if so, which month?
That is year to date versus a budgeted year to date of 8.09%.
What was the second qualitative?
The budgeted margin was 8.09%.
Okay.
And that is year to date, if you heard that.
Okay, and year to date through which month? Through March, through February, okay. So we're looking, so for here, we're talking about March financials, even though we're not expecting detail on March financials necessarily yet. Is that correct?
March financials were dropped in the packet, so that is available. We completed March last week. We're in we have a more favorable structure this month for the timing of the board meeting. We were able to get the month closed at a regular time, but the cadence of the board meeting this month, we were allowed to get that available to you all.
Okay, so can you please remind me, I know we discussed this last month and I do not remember the resolution of if we're going to start doing on a regular basis, a 1 month back, look back or a 2 month look back. Well, what should we expect? And we shouldn't change it based upon it's a good month or a bad month as far as timing wise. I just don't remember what we resolved. Can somebody help me?
So from my understanding, we didn't make an official decision. It was made as a recommendation from a procedural process. It would make sense to me for FAC to make this decision and present to you all, but I will take guidance from both legal and the board on how they'd like to proceed on making that official decision.
Tim, can you help me with that? Are we back looking at that? Sorry.
So, yeah, we did not make a determination on that, that request of yours. However, the FAC did look at both February and March, because March was available. We're not going to say, oh, we're going to push that off a month when it's available. So from the FAC standpoint, I don't think we need to make a serious change. We will look at what's final when it's available at the time of the FAC. Because we do not keep a consistent board meeting schedule, have not for several years. We move it around because of a desire to accommodate different people's schedules and so forth. And we do set it for the year, but so it's variable. We will look at those when we get them and they're final. And in this case, February and March are in the board packet. They're final. We did review them at FAC. What else? Is there anything else?
No, that was it. I just couldn't remember. Thank you very much.
Okay. Could you speak to the primary drivers of the soft revenue number to the extent that you know it?
Essentially temperatures, warmer temperatures in February and March. And it hit residential, commercial large, and small commercial as well obviously those are our main revenue drivers. All three of those segments were down, and it was primarily from higher temperatures.
So the higher temperature means less
Usage.
Yeah,
Weather was wild.
heating, right? So that means, and that's the heating, the primary,
Right,
so people on 2 to 5% variance.
on kilowatts, yeah.
And what was the
2% on revenue.
2% on revenue?
Yep.
Dan isn't here, but this is very typical that, if you have a hard winter like we did in 2023, our revenues are up. This winter, it was not a very, cold winter in February, March, so we saw less kilowatt hours as usual. It's not like we can do much about that.
Dan has a more sophisticated method than just taking last year's weather, right? And I know last year was a particularly strong winter, right? It's more sophisticated than that, but it's weather prediction.
We look at heating degree days and cooling degree days, right, which are commoditized indicators. And the other thing with this is that obviously cost of power correlates strongly with the kilowatt demand. Cost of power was better than budget. That basically resulted in growth margins, which were quarter to date, or for the quarter, I would say, year to date, we were 1% off of our forecasted budgeted gross margin. So that does translate into lower power costs.
Okay, so and then so the last question, and this is more of a macro trend question than a specific this month, this quarter. So
Speak up a little bit, Jim.
sorry, thank you. So this is a question about a macro trend rather than this month or year over year. So if temperatures rise over a 10-year period and we see fewer and fewer cold days, should we expect revenue to go down, or averaged over the years and over a long period of time, will that essentially stay neutral because everybody's cranking up their AC?
I think that both of those are potential scenarios, but the latter, you would expect. I had the exact same thought, and my thought this year in particular is El Nino, which tends to mean higher temperatures. So I'm looking at summer for that exact scenario that you just described. 1 year does not a macro trend define, but I think it's a great indicator. So I would tend to lean towards the latter would be what my intuitive guess is. Dan might have a little bit more insight into that, but.
And so it's not every year that we take a deep dive into those forecasts, but, occasionally bring that to the board during a cow or something and jump into it. I don't think we did this last year. But we do look at it on a month by month basis. So it's not just, hey, what's going to happen this year? And the driver is kilowatt usage per customer per month is what we're really trying to scale to. And so, yes, we're looking at the trends, over 10, 15 years of heating degree data. And so if on June or July is trending upward, then the next point is going to be over here. But then you have, a lot of other things that are moving. It's not just weather data. It's how much solar is being on the roofs, how much EVs are coming on, how many heat pumps are coming on too. So we're trying to take all that into consideration when plotting that point for the next year. And so it's, just following those trends on a monthly basis. And whenever I hear the weather forecast for because we have to recall that we're actually doing this in August before, it's like 18 months ahead of time when we're actually forecasting this out. So we don't even really have the super long forecast, El Nino, La Nina kind of information at that point.
Because, this is great. As we now take control of our power supply, these questions are going to become more.
Absolutely.
We're all going to have to get better at this thinking. So it's great.
And then that same thought process, budget variances. I feel like there's some process improvement we can make to maybe minimize some of these budget variances we're dealing with, because as we do move into this process, we want to be precise as we can with pacing. So I'm going to do everything I can to help close up some of these variances that we're seeing. I don't obviously have a crystal ball, but I think there's some steps we can take to improve the process to get better at that.
For sure. We do, and it's normal practice in the solar industry to shape your DSCR curves for seasonality and all season elements for these exact issues and to front run issues around when you think there's going to be real issues, and if you have equipment in harvest areas of harvest to adjust so you don't trip all your debt covenants. And these are questions we'll have to start dealing with for the first time in this organization ever. So it's great.
So overall, budgeting is gonna become more complex, right, for.
Yes, and I'm sensitive to the folks that are sitting to my right, because perhaps it might not be something that's necessarily in the wheelhouse as far as maybe a more granular labor budget where you're looking at an hours to wages structure, but we're gonna help with that. We'll hold hands. If we have to execute and be the fingers on the keyboards, we're happy to do that. So, but yes, I do see a more complex strategy on the horizon. I'm already planning for it, to be quite honest with you. That'll be on our end of presentation. We'll try and keep comparable for you. Anyone else? Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick.
Prepare for the future, right? So the example of burying the lead, right? We're working with NREL and La Plata County Airport to evaluate the feasibility of an all-electric or electric hybrid airplanes, right? So like, that isn't one of the coolest things you ever get to pull it and report on there. Like, pretty awesome to be a part of that partnership wise.
Not in our budget, though, right?
We're, we are not taking the lead on that, right? Our aerospace engineering background isn't what our electrical engineering background is here. We're definitely excited to be part of any and all of those sort of future electrification of transportation sector. So also, though, we got our BYLAW grant awarded for universally scalable and adaptable approach to crafting localized adaptable electrification programs. And Dan, you speak maybe a hair more to that?
Yeah, that's gonna be, it's not something, a payment goes to us, it's going to BELCO, the Beneficial Electrification League of Colorado, to establish programs and set things up that will be a benefit to us. So that's gonna, have dividends down the road a ways, but it was through our letters of support and our, actually John Kinney is the one that ran with this for the most part on setting that up, and they were awarded that funding. BELCO was to make this happen. So we're excited to see that, and it's gonna help us with beneficial electrification efforts in the future.
And then as far as the PACE grant, it was the official awarding of the PACE grant occurred, as David might remember, it was actually at the NRECA convention in San Antonio in the beginning of March. So we were sort of informed about it in February, we were awarded it in March. So that's why it's here on this award section.
Just a clarification, was that truly a grant?
It is in the form of a loan, right? And loan forgiveness, that's the sort of modern congressional method for handing out this this type of money.
I just think, maybe our membership and others might not be caught up with that distinction, and we refer this as a grant. I think it has a different connotation than if we refer to it as a forgivable loan. And I just think we should be a little careful with that.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing Tim said. A lot of people seem to be saying that they think we're gonna get $13 million from somewhere, but it's not that easy. So.
Only if we win the lottery.
That's $1 billion.
That would solve a lot.
Kirsten, and again, if you had your hand up back at financials and we need to go back, you didn't see it on.
No, I'm good here. I had my hand up for a while, but not still on this page. So two things. One, I want to react to is this a grant or is this a loan? I know with PPA, we always called it a grant and it was a forgivable loan. I know we book it as a loan until it gets forgiven. I think maybe a loan/grant might be effective, but if it's like the PPA, which it is, it's a forgivable loan, then it's a grant.
It's not 100% true.
Okay, well, then we need to go back and perhaps look at all the times we called the PPA a grant. Then secondly, or actually firstly, my is regarding electrification. I'm sorry, did I miss something, Tim? Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
listening.
I thought I heard something. The regarding the electrification, you know, as we do grow our solar rooftop, it means we're selling less electricity. And as we sell less electricity, we need to be looking for places to create more demand. And certainly electrification is our spot because we are in the business of selling electricity. So I'm pleased to see that we're still working on our electrification because we are going to be, as we have more competitors in the market, in that we are basically competing with our members on generating electricity, which is a great place to be. It gets a little harder to sell. We need to sell more by creating demand. Thank you.
Any other questions on the slide? All right. Any final questions?
Maybe. So again, go back to grant. There's a notation of a new USDA PACE grant, right? Is that also a forgivable loan or is that not?
That's one and the same. I mean, that's where it says awarded the USDA PACE and the other paragraph there, the 13.4 million. Those are both referring to the same thing. And the 13.4, 40% of that is eligible for loan forgiveness.
All right, so if it was granted, it'd be the 7.58 million.
So 77.5 million is the sum of all three of those.
Okay.
In there.
Okay. All right, that's
Which is inclusive of only about 5 million of the 13.
perfect. Thank you. And I would just also comment that you guys have done a great job gathering up forgivable loans and grants and other financing to help us with our new power supply strategy. I'm eternally grateful and not trying to, split hairs, but I think when it comes to members, they hear grant and I get that feedback. That's different than when I have to explain, well, part of it's a forgivable loan. So I'm just kind of responding. I think your performance is great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think we're trying to be very deliberate on our wording there, but sometimes people aren't reading it that closely either.
That's probably true. Even me. Thank you.
Anything else? For, CEO and staff reports, move on. All right, into section 5, board action agenda. I always see this and I think, man, wouldn't it be great if board action was we get to go for a walk or something like that? No, this is the hard work. First item in there is finance and audit committee update. So I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you. My report is in the fact committee report is in the board package. And basically, in terms of financials, Patrick gave a great presentation just now, similar to what we did in the fact, although we dove a little deeper into some of those. And then we spent the majority of the time discussing the subscription program for Sunnyside Community Solar Garden. And Emily, I'm not sure I will pronounce your last name correctly, but Misseldine, I got it? Sure. And Dan made a great presentation. And I believe that was, for the most part, was in the packet. if not, there's a link to Google Docs location where you can also go look at it. And I'm not gonna go through that whole presentation here, and I don't think, Jan, you were prepared to do that either, right? At this point. So if there are questions that we have to you still have that don't allow us to do this recommendation, we would have to take to that next month. But in the committee, after reviewing this, the FAC unanimously endorsed this Sunnyside Community Solar Program. There were a couple of sort of adjustments around it, but they were not major, that we made a suggestion to. Dan incorporated those. I think they were part of the memo. And essentially, coming out of the committee, we moved to approve LPEA's Sunnyside Community Solar Program as recommended by our committee and outlined the program documentation. So I don't think we need a second for that, right?
Yeah, I think when it's something that's been delegated to a committee and the committee returns its recommendation, it is a motion and it's open for discussion.
So thank you, Tim, and that leaves us open for discussion before we go to vote on that recommendation. Maybe. Anybody? Joe?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on the key provisions. 22% allocated to LP's general membership subscription at 22.76 kilowatts a month with 5-year term. Can you explain that a little bit more, how that works? Or
so which subscription were you asking about?
The general residential commercial members, the 22%.
So what exactly is?
Well,
what's the question?
So when you say 22.76, are they playing a flat rate or?
Yes, and Dan, why don't you take this, because he's the architect more than I am.
Yes, the way it works is, that's the subscription fee that entitles you to production from the solar garden. So for every KW you would like to subscribe to, it's $22.76 per KW. Okay, so let's say per month. Okay. So if you wanted, I'll make my math easy, just say 1 KW, a small system, and that would entitle you to the production of 1 KW of our 2,000 KW system. And so then at the end of the month, we say, how much did our 2,000 KW system produce? And you would get 1/2000th of that. That's what that subscription fee would entitle you to, which happens to be pretty closely equivalent to about $22.76 of electricity.
Okay. And so what's the upside for someone who wants to subscribe? Is it altruistic, or are they actually going to make money on this, or what?
It's not being sold as a money maker for people. It's for people that want to participate in the solar transition that can't put solar on the roof. Maybe they're renting, or they don't have the optimal roof aspect, on things like that. Or they don't want to maintain the system, on the roof and just look at it, variety of
capital.
Yeah, and most importantly, doesn't want to pay for the upfront capital to put that there. Maybe they're like, I can do this as a monthly subscription that pretty much gets offset by my savings. And they point to that and say, yeah, that solar garden that I drive past as I come into Durango, I got a piece of that.
So it would offset, if I subscribed, it would offset, if there was excess, it would offset on my bill.
Yes, so you can subscribe for up to 100% of what your usage is. Okay, so that might be on average, maybe somebody needs 5 kW. Okay, so that would be 5 times the 22.76 that shows up on subscription. And then they would get that portion each month. Now in the winter months, the solar garden's not gonna produce as much. It produces less. In the summer months, it'll produce more. And if it produces more than they actually use at their home, then it can get banked, just like it would be if you had solar panel on the roof of your house.
Another communications challenge to explain that to everyone, because it's not a simple concept, so.
Yeah, we're trying to mimic let it mimic, net meter solar on the roof as much as possible. And there's, been other community solar gardens in our service territory, but this will be the first one that will apply electric to the ministry.
Great, thanks.
Great. Rachel has her hand up. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks. Is this coming across?
It is.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was curious if you could explain the, I think it's the 1.05 multiplier, and if that policy or that rate structure, I think it was to recoup some of the discount on the income eligible folks. Is there any way that that is perceived or is a discriminatory rate?
Discriminatory, no, because it'd be voluntary. So it's not something that we would be forcing upon anybody. And you have the reason there is correct, that this helps this program be self-supported. We are not asking our external members to support the discount that the low income side of the equation receives.
Great. And then I had just a couple other questions on design to understand. One of them was, for some reason, I know the general membership could get, I think it was a bill credit for any pooled or something like that was the terms during the true up period if they had, and then the income eligible could not. And I was curious why.
Yeah, and so they can bank it, but it cannot be cashed out at the end. It's because it's discounted, so that'd be incentivizing people to oversubscribe just to get cashed out at the end. And there's also on the detailed document, I can look at the supporting documentation behind that as well, but I'd have to pull that up and give me a minute, I can come back to that one.
Okay, but was I accurate that for some reason the income eligibles can't credit out there or get paid out for their bank,
Yes.
but the general membership could? And you're saying that's to...
Yeah, it's different than putting solar on your roof. They can subscribe to the right size, okay?
Mhm.
And so there shouldn't be any excess generation.
Yes, that part I understand the banks and how they work and that there shouldn't be. I guess I was just, if I read it correctly, if there was a banked amount, general members, I'll try to find that, would get paid out for that, but income eligible would not if there was banked amount come April.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That one to me seems, I guess I'd be curious to understand the rationale there, because it seems a little bit, yeah, maybe just understand the rationale.
One pays a premium and the other gets a discount. And I think that is, that says a lot right there. So if you are low income and you qualify, you're able to participate this at a discounted rate that's 20%, right? So you provide an incentive to oversubscribe so that you have a bank that you can then apply to your bill later is one aspect of that, right? And whereas the community member is paying a 5% extra on this for a number of reasons, but mostly because it helps support the lower income side, right? So if there is a overage there, then getting that credit makes sense. They've already paid a little extra for that, whereas the other constituent paid a discounted price, right? It seems to be a fairness within the program, right? To maintain the element of fairness with it. That's how I view it. Dan, maybe you have...
Yeah, and it's also a matter of, Rachel, on how this is actually applied, and there's different billing mechanisms that come into play with the two groups. The low income side simply gets a 20% discount on their energy for the kilowatt hours that they're allocated. So there's, it would be an over credit is what would end up happening, and it just doesn't quite make sense, but let me see if I could look at this. Emily did a good job on the billing rationale section of that I'm looking at here in the document. And let me see if there's other things that make this point a little more clear for you here as I review this.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think, Dan, your rationale made a bit more sense. I was just thinking about how it does kind of promote this energy efficiency mindset, which I know is one of our goals, even though we're also trying to promote beneficial electrification. And it kind of opens up the pool. But again, we could be splitting hairs because ideally people are getting allocated based on what their use is. And then just two other quick notes I saw in the other considerations. I agree that if you're asking other organizations to income qualify you, I'll just back this up as a nonprofit person, to put in some budget when you go to those orgs and ask them to do this. It's extra work. And if it's not already built into their programming, it'd be nice. You're more likely to get a yes that way. And then I think the other thing I was just going to ask is derating. I saw that down at the bottom, something about derating of 2% in the first year and 0.2% the year after that. Could you explain what derating is?
So it wouldn't be 22% a year after that. But derating is the sense that when a solar facility is first installed, it has X amount of capacity. Each year, it produces a little bit less. And so we want to take that into consideration and make sure that we're not overselling what a kilowatt of panel will produce. So we've taken that into consideration.
Thank you.
The performance of the panel declines over time.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And they're accounting for that. Anything else, Rachel?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Other questions? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, just a quick comment. It's a 5-year contract. I guess if I go on my side and get it, but I lock everything down for 5 years.
That's correct.
So up front, I might be paying a little 5% extra, but through the life, you're hedging on your bill for 5 years. So that is a positive. Communicate out that if you want to participate in, if you're on the, not the low income side, but the other side, you do get a benefit long-term over the 5 years. So I see that as a huge part.
And it's a good point. You know.
Yeah.
Effectively, you're fixing your energy costs for 5 years, essentially.
And you can average it month by month. So you know what your bill is going to be if you're on fixed income.
Right.
For that 5 years.
And it applies both to commercial as well as residential. Okay, anyone else?
Kirsten.
Oh, okay, sorry. Kirsten? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, do we have any issues in selling our subscriptions to this or to the previous ones? And that's my question. Have we had any issues in the past getting it subscribed to fully?
Well, I don't think that LPEA has ever run its own community solar garden. So we don't have any experience in the past, but it was discussed at the FAC and staff indicated a level of confidence that this would probably be oversubscribed rather than undersubscribed, in which case, if there's oversubscription, members who are interested or applying would go into a lottery and they would be chosen at random.
And just to elaborate on that, it was also discussed if it was undersubscribed, it would still pencil for LPEA.
That's right. If it were undersubscribed, financially, it would just be a lower cost power source or an equivalent power source cost.
Even go further than that, if you factor in the $2 million prepay from the city plus federal incentives, county, thank you. This is a great.
But the county's upfront payment actually buys them a large block of subscription.
Right.
So it's not necessarily, and Dan, correct me on this, tell me if I'm wrong. It's not necessarily a lowering of the capital cost, it's a prepaid prescription, if you will.
Sure, but in terms of capital outlay to get
Yes.
for a really nice piece of infrastructure built at very low cost, upfront customer membership. This is a hell of a win.
It saved us borrowing costs and it allowed us to leverage on the grid.
Yep.
So it is a real win-win. This is a fun and exciting project.
Yeah.
And I will also say that, and we didn't discuss this here or in the report, but we did at the FAC. Part of the reason we would like to have this approved today is it gives more time for the communications plan that Amanda and others have been working on to get this out into our community, explain it, rather than us as board members try and do it here on the fly, which I don't think we're very good at least I'm not. And so if we approve that today, that gives us more time, so that roughly by the time we energize this in the summer, we can then have subscribers that will be taking advantage of this, right? So, for those people who are suffering from a solar moratorium at the moment, you might want to consider putting in your application for a subscription when it's available, because this would solve that issue for you to some degree. And that is a longer term part of the plan here. Solar moratorium is unfortunate right now. It's physics. It's not a policy necessarily, but it is clear that the more opportunities we have for community solar gardens and so forth, the less pressure there is to have these sited in neighborhoods where there isn't capacity, right? So these are win-wins. These are moving LPA towards what membership wants. And that's part of that communication.
So, and just to finish my thought, and this is really.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, and more of a prompt to you. If we're oversubscribed, knock wood, that will give us confidence to build additional solar on that site, because we already own the land. We have headroom on the interconnection to do that. And then we would know that we have a real appetite for offtake at those prices. Yes.
Yes. Yes, and there's a forgivable loan coming up that might be able to be used for.
And that's just awesome.
For like, that would be almost 2.5 times, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we starts the ball rolling.
I
Pretty
also,
nice and done. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I think Rachel was up first and then you, Nicole. Thank you. Rachel?
Awesome, thanks. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can't see you.
Perfect. Well, the video's on, but I don't know.
It's just the sunlight.
It's the halo.
Oh, yeah.
Saint
It's my
Rachel.
halo. So 2 quick questions. Well, one is I guess an understanding question. So when I was looking at the rate design for the income qualified, I know it mentioned something about needing to set up 2 separate rates because the demand rate wouldn't be, or the peak rate or something wouldn't be included in this, in the solar garden situation. And I'm just curious if this is like a mini pilot of, we've talked at various times about debundling rate structures as kind of the model of the future, since we are potentially going to be selling less energy, or we become a wires company, or all the things we've talked about. Is this, am I understanding correctly, this could be like a little mini pilot of that, the way you're thinking of?
It's the way that our rate structure is at the moment, Rachel. If you're a net metered customer now, you still pay the peak rate. All this does is match up against your energy rate, essentially. Correct?
Okay.
So it's not anything new. It is business as usual, if you will.
Okay.
For both.
And then, great. And then, this was another question I had. When we were talking about the rates, this is all just based on our, whatever we call it, type A, class A rate, not the distributed energy rate.
Yes.
Okay. And then the last, yes. Okay. Thank you. And then this one is just food for thought, especially to John's point about headroom and extra development potential. I thought I love that, and I know it's part of the PACE loan grant thing, that we have this income qualified requirement. And I started to think about some of the conversations we've had around economic development, supporting community development, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe in the future, we could think about if there's a way to support like not only economic income requirements for individual households, but socially disadvantaged businesses, like thinking about those census tracts in our service territory that qualify for the AUDIT. Gosh, I can't remember what it is, but basically because of where they are, they're at less likelihood of success. And wouldn't it be cool if we could kind of open up a category for that or some sort of preference when we look at the commercial side of things? So just a note. Thank you.
I think Nicole was next, and then we'll come to you, Kirsten.
So a lot of the conversation of the fact was based around messaging of this, because as was commented, it's hard for some of us on the board to even understand what this is. So there's also, we spent a lot of time thinking about that 5% premium and how that's not really a great. Yeah, totally. But it's not even an extra cost too. Like when we looked through, I mean, it's a cost of the program. I don't know if an extra cost is totally correct, but you know, I kind of have like some people I try to talk to about this to be like, okay, do I understand this? What are your questions? Like what is, and one of the things that kind of, I thought with our messaging, we might want to include, because one of the responses I got was like, well, if I was going to do this, why wouldn't I just pay the premium and get renewable energy credits? Like, why would I want to go down this route of the community solar garden? And I thought that maybe one of the things we could include in the messaging is that, you know, and also it's like, well, if we could just have programs where we have cheaper energy that allows us to offer discounts to income qualified people. Like, why do we have this special program for it? And one of the communication pieces that I was kind of thought we should include is that, you know, community solar is a way that allows us to run around or to work within our tri-state contract to generate energy. Yeah, like
I can't put another one of these in under our current tri-state contract.
right, and the reason this is a way for us to produce more local energy within our current contract complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, go ahead.
I see where, we found a way to make this, it's not perfectly ideal, but
Yeah.
it can work.
Yeah.
And, honestly, by the time we're to do another one today and start the process, we're after April 1st, 2026 for energization.
Right, so this is kind of a way to think of our transition to local solar generation. That's why.
Let's get a head start.
Yeah, that's why this is different than buying renewable energy credits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you. Kirsten, I think you're next.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That last conversation just confused me a little bit. 'Cause my question was about how does this fit into our 5% deal with Tri-State, that we can only generate 5% and we have to pay over. And I know we're already close to that and sometimes pay over, or pay for that difference. So is this all within, going to be all within, and we don't have to pay a premium for this back to Tri-State for electricity that we created?
Yeah, it gets a bit complicated. Essentially, it's absolutely outside of our 5%. We are taking advantage of a qualifying facility clause in Tri-State Policy 101, where it's not as much of a compensation as we would normally get under the 5% Policy 115 provision. So instead of, being credited at the Policy 115 amount, we're getting credited at a avoided cost amount as a qualifying facility, which, it pencils out for us. And, but it's taking a unique contract, and I don't know if we'll be able to replicate it.
Okay, so it pencils out, but in 2 years, it will pencil better, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Significantly better, or certainly enough to offset any degradation in the system percentage that we're taking off.
And that's to be determined. We'll have to see what our power supply structure is in the future, because that's what you're up against.
Right. Great. Thank you so much.
Further questions? Oh, Joe?
Yeah, a couple things, and I'm sorry if I missed this in here, but when will this be offered to the public?
I believe the target is June, right?
June for energizing it, but I think we're talking September.
Okay.
No.
September will be when the members would start to see their credits on the bill.
Okay.
And the intention would be to energize the garden in June. And in conjunction with that, we would also open up the subscription program. And we're committed to at least a 2-month period for enrollment. And if we can, we'd love to include more time to educate the public, Tim, to your point. So we'd like to do this really well.
And how many, for lack of a better term, shares will there be? I mean, how many, is there 1,000?
Well, you
500?
sign up by the kilowatt. There's 2,000 kilowatts to go around. The way to look at this is equivalent to 600 homes, this whole garden. Okay, the Plata County taking 28% of it. You've got, you can do the math. Patrick's doing
So one of my concerns is I think this is gonna be like Taylor Swift concert tickets. It's gonna be oversubscribed very quickly. Do we have a process set up, or is there gonna be a lottery, or?
Yes,
Yeah,
there is a lot.
Okay.
If it's oversubscribed, and I mentioned that a moment ago, the names will go into a pool for which they're chosen randomly, right?
And there's also a limitation on how much any one person or business can sign up for. So we didn't want it to all go like one big.
It's 10 and 25.
10 and 20.
10 for,
Let me double check that. I'm sure Emily's listening. She's probably screaming at me right now. I should know that's off. I'll double check. I wanted to say 5. Somewhere right in front of me. I'll get back to you on that. Keep talking. Oh, there it is, 10 and 25. Yeah.
I read. Anything else, Joe? Anyone else? Holly?
Is this project subject to the direct pay program? Do they already?
Yep.
It is? Okay, so we already filed taxes?
No, this will be, since we haven't energized yet, this will be a 2024 period.
Yeah, because there were some pitfalls given to us at the last CRA meeting. And it says that pre-registration with the IRS is required to participate, that the tax credits and grants are stackable. There's a May 15th deadline that has no grace periods or exemptions, so I don't know if that applies to us. It doesn't sound like it does this year. But there's, credit is available when the project is placed in service, and that the census tracts can change from year to year, so you have to be aware of that.
Oh.
Anyone else? That was helpful.
Yeah, Tim, I'll go to one last thing. I just really wanted to comment on, I did sit through the back meeting and comment on the process that happened there, kind of upgraded process, I'll call it. I think it was fantastic how staff recognized that sometimes the board and specifically the committee members in that case see a lot of information and don't really know what to focus on. There's so much there. I mean, we're all saying this over and over again. It's hard for even us as not experts at all, but involved people to grasp all of this and what's happening and where the decision points are. And what I'm getting at is I think staff did an incredible job at really highlighting decision points, places where, a lot of this stuff, it just has to go a certain way. It's physics, it's finance, it's those kind of things. But there were several places where it was clearly pointed out that, that committee input would be useful and valuable. And those led to really good discussions within the FACT committee. And I had this kind of follow-up conversation with Graham, and he suggested that was not unique to this particular topic, that it was something that staff had recognized through the course of, I don't know, the last 9 months or 9 years, where this could improve that process. So, you know, I think it resulted in much better acceptance from the committee. I mean, obviously, you know, unanimous agreement, but also I think it will pay dividends going forward as we address lots more of these complex topics. So thanks for taking that continuous improvement opportunity.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna give credit to Dan and his team, especially Emily, for really kind of handling that process, right? So they're the ones whose originality led to that. It's like Dan Huntington.
Dan Huntington?
Yeah, I'd like to second the motion and get moving on.
Right, okay, so anyone else? I guess we can call for a vote. Is that me or you?
Go for it, Tim. You're right.
So all in favor of the recommendation that we adopt the community solar program?
Aye.
Raise your hand, say aye. Is there any?
Aye.
Is there any opposition? One, Director Lee, and any abstention? All right, so the motion passes.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you to the staff. Hold on.
I'm sorry, Tim, I didn't hear you. Director who?
Director Lee,
Thank you.
okay,
Okay.
it's your agenda again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tim, for guiding that. Okay, on to item B, that's Committee on Policy update. John, are you gonna lead that one?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so in front of you is the memo asking for the input to policy 203. Disposition of unclaimed capital credits. You can see the red line that was reworked through there on the committee, and we were looking for the board input so that we can take it back next week to the committee meeting and be able to bring it next month forward as a completed document. Do you have any input?
Sure.
Yes.
So just, I mean, it's a really simple change, but it says a reference to the cooperative website. You know, I would just say reference to the cooperative website address or the URL or something. I mean, you go to our website and it's sometimes hard to find something there. That's all.
Okay, noted. Rachel?
Yeah, I wasn't sure, since we're truing up the bylaws, the bylaw, if I read it correctly, said something about we must mail everyone this notice, and then the policy said preferred method of communication, be it mail or email. Can we, do we have to?
Rachel, then, I think that's a different policy, right?
Yes,
Oh.
that's policy 105, I believe, Rachel.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Still relevant, just next.
105 should be before 203.
And if you want to get comments to me offline about this too, I will incorporate them before our next committee on policies meeting.
Yeah, you could send those to Graham or myself. Our next committee on policy meeting is next Monday, the 22nd of April. If we have those before 9 o'clock in the morning, we'll consider those in front of the committee to be able to put together the final policy recommendation and bring it forward next month. So you don't have to be on the spot for that.
So that be anything in this policy could be with that, or is just this change?
This was what was recommended. If there's something that you see that is, has a question to it, we'll consider it at the committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? All right, we'll look for your comments there. Moving on to policy 105. This will be an action for you in reference to the bylaws. You take a look at the red line policy. With those red lines, we will be looking for somebody to move to approve would be the intended action here. Tim,
So moved. I moved to approve the change to policy 105
all
as
right,
presented, and then there was a correction.
Okay, yeah.
I had a correction and addition.
all right, we have a motion to approve this. So we have a seconded by Joe.
And then
All right,
it sounded
and we'll
like
go ahead.
Rachel had a comment.
Yeah, and then now into discussion, Rachel?
Yeah, just that question around if we're trying to align all the policies and the bylaws said something about have to mail people updates. And I think policy 105, maybe I'm getting them all mixed up, but policy 105 said preferred method of communication. Do we have to change it to mail?
No, we're changing the bylaws. So the statute was changed a couple years ago to say members preferred method of communication. And so it's my legal interpretation that we need to change to match that statute because members will have a legal expectation on both sides of that. The members who have communicated to us that they want to receive paper have an expectation of receiving paper, and the members that have communicated to us that they have an expectation of receiving no paper should not be forced to receive paper. So that's part of the bylaw amendment to change that.
Yay. Okay, that was the answer I hoped for.
Yes, Joe.
And this is very minor, in the last revised and reviewed, you got a little over zealous on the deleted line there, because so the month is, if you look at least on mine, 2/16/224 is all deleted.
Okay.
So we need the month.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll get good dates on it. Yeah.
All right, Kirsten?
Yeah, I'm, Graham, what you just said about the bylaws and this policy as far as the dates thing, did you say I'm sorry for the confusion, did you say that the bylaws still say mail and this policy says that, and we can follow this policy and bring the bylaws up later on?
So the bylaws is the next agenda item, right? And so part of the proposed bylaw amendment from last month was included, and I'm gonna pull that up right here. It says,
so do we need to do that bylaw first before we do this one?
I mean, I think we can consider this relatively simultaneous as far as, by the time the action is completed. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Other comments or discussion? Seeing none, take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimous.
Great.
That should be done with the committee.
But sort of moving on to the related bylaw amendment, we'll take that up now. So as you know, we posted this bylaw amendment immediately after last month's meeting to address the issue that had that 75-day deadline that didn't correspond with any obligation, and sort of created internal confusion about the provide information on how to file a nominating petition and information on how to become a candidate, which are effectively the same thing, to become a candidate by filing a nominating petition. So we consolidated that into section 5. I would note that sort of through a typo drafting oversight, there was one clause that didn't kind of get pulled down, which was to list the district from which each director. So what I would recommend is that this just, if you're able to follow along, it says a list of each position on the board of directors, which is expiring, and then it should say, and the district from which each director is to be elected, and then instructions on filing a nominating petition and the schedule of elections. shall be posted on the cooperative website, posted at the principal office. So that clause was inadvertently omitted and would be part of what we would be approving here today.
And for my benefit, maybe anyone else's, just one more time, what is the clause that's being added back in?
So if you look at section 4, what we tried to do is track, basically just take the 75 days out, track all of the things that members were expecting to receive information on out of section 4 and migrate that down into section 5. So section 4 said that we would post in the principal office of the cooperative and publish at least once in the newspaper of general circulation, 1, a list of each position for the board of directors, which is expiring, 2, a district from which each director is to be elected, and 3, instructions for filing the nominating petition. Only 1 and 3 got sort of copied and pasted down, and all 3 of them, that was inadvertent, all 3 of those should have been tracked through, so that there will be no substance change to that portion of the files, just be relocated. All the same expectations of the information to be communicated to the members will remain identical from the previous draft to the hopefully approved draft.
So there was one set of phrase that was added back to what we received, which is the district from which each director is to be elected.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that was clear because that is,
Right.
we're doing that on the fly, so everyone needs to be aware. That's part of what we'll be voting on. And that it is non-consequential.
Yeah, it's a drafting oversight, and it's sort of it doesn't change anything that anyone operating under these bylaws expectations would have had in the previous draft and the current draft. Kirsten has a question.
Yeah, Tim, that was helpful that you said what the little clause was. I still think we should see it on the screen. Graham, would you put it up?
Can we, do you have, I can show you where it is online, if that helped, Drew. It's posted on our website.
And then you can share your screen.
Can I come? You can pull it up on the website and you can share your screen. There you go. Oh, that's not it yet. Yeah. No, that's not it yet.
It's not supposed to change the bylaw.
Not a presentation, but you want the.
Yeah, so here, one of the easiest way to find it,
Or if you can say what page it's on.
go to our website.
Oh, it.
I just don't want to mess this up again since we've had a little trouble with our bylaws and policies on this one.
All right, so section 4, nomination of directors, this is what we are omitting, right? Which is particularly what we're really taking out is the 75 days deadline, and then we're taking all of the expectations, the posting in the principal office, publishing in the newspaper of general circulation, the 3 things, the list of positions, the district from the which the director is to be elected, and the instructions for filing a nominating petition, relocating those down into the next section. If you scroll down, Drew.
Do you mean to be sharing a screen here?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
It's being shared.
So maybe scroll back up.
So yeah, go back up to section 4.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was.
Is this visible?
Yep.
Kirsten, can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so, so basically what we're really accomplishing by this strike through is omitting the 75 days because all the other material is getting relocated down into section 4. So 75 days is effectively coming out, the posting in the principal office, and publishing in a newspaper of general circulation are being retained in the lower section. The list of positions, the district from which each director is to be elected, and the instruction of filing a nominating petition are also being relocated into the next section. So if you scroll down, Drew, you can see that here, section 5, election of directors. So you can see list of each position on the board of directors, which is expiring. Then the insertion of the omitted text, identifying the district would be the kind of right after that comma, after expiring, before instructions. And then the instructions on filing the nominating petition, we've omitted mail to each member and replaced that with otherwise published based on the member's preferred method of communication, which is the statutory language. We've also carried down posting in the principal office, publishing in the newspaper as expectations of forms of communication. So those are all just relocations. They're not any sort of substantive change.
And you had written back to me with this, with the district information in green. I just emailed that to you. If you want to bring that up, then everyone will see exactly what we're voting.
Yeah.
That's your spam guy. Spam filter.
So this is so you can see the green text was the inadvertently omitted carry forward clause from section 4. Does that clarify this?
Thank you, sir.
That's accurate.
So that's what we'll be voting.
That's what you'll be voting.
Yeah. All right, any other discussion on that? Okay then, yeah, all in favor of that bylaw change? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? Okay, motion passes. All right, let's see, item E under board action, approval of new third-party election facilitator.
Let's gonna
drive again, Brandon.
All right, I was gonna let Amanda, she's going to put together this package for us. She's been taking the point on this and give her credit for, I think it's a job well done. Do you have her? Yep.
All right, so while Drew pulls that up, so let's see, so in the board packet, we have included a letter from Tiffany Lee, LaPlata County Clerk and Recorder. So when we were made aware that the annual meeting was being continued, thereby our election timeline had changed, Tiffany informed us that because of the general election, we would need to find a new third-party facilitator. So unfortunately, her recommendation is that we find a new permanent partner. And so really, as we looked to find someone, we wanted to find a long-term partner that could also scale, should we want to add bells and whistles later through online voting, those sorts of things. And so this recommendation really outlines what we'd like to see, if all goes well, the long-term independent third-party election facilitator. So I think Drew, again, with Tiffany, she again is really recommending that we find someone who does this for multiple cooperatives. She's the only one in the state who actually does this for us in Colorado. And so her recommendation is that, there are other people who do this across the country and in our state, and they do it all the time. So to find best in breed, someone can help us. All right, so I touched on this. We love the cooperative model, and I was able to solicit a lot of great input and recommendations from other statewide cooperatives. And by and large, I heard very clearly who the key recommendation was from our other cooperative cohorts. There was another that we surveyed to see if it could work out. But again, 99% of people recommended a singular partner. All right, so we are recommending survey and ballot systems that we adopt really what a lot of our other local counterparts not only at Empire, but across the state. They've been utilizing survey and ballot systems for many, many years and are very satisfied with the service that they are provided with. And I would also note that Tiffany has, she's committed to helping us in this transition, and we're already finding ways that she can continue to be involved, helping us maintain the same ballot boxes. And so Tiffany is also, believes via her letter, that this would be good for her. So her endorsement means a lot to us. And another large motivation beyond the scalability to the future is that survey and ballot systems, they really provide a very similar, again, I have not been here for an election, but through Graham's recommendation and viewpoint, this would be the most similar transition for the membership. And so trying to make this a seamless transition for the year. That's it. What questions do you all have?
Kirsten, yes.
Go ahead, Kirsten.
Yeah, I just have one question. In your memo to the board about this, under the pros and cons, it talks about has a co-op ballot cost. And I'm not sure what that is compared to what this whole, because that's a different price tag than.
Good, yeah, good point. So Co-op Ballot was another company that we investigated. So that is the business name. Did that answer your question?
No, I don't think you did. I don't think you did. I'm looking on the second page of your memo to the board, and which I really appreciate. And it's about the pros and cons. And it says, oh, so Co-op Ballot is the name of a company?
Yes.
Oh,
Good
and that's a con. A con? I'm not systems. Oh, that's its own new thing. Do you see what I'm looking at? It's pretty confusing because it's kind of just this floater there. Is that the beginning of a new paragraph? And we're talking about the pros and cons of Co-op Ballot. Okay, I'm a little slow. Sorry, I've been on a plane for a long time.
That's all right.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question about co-op ballot, when you were asking other co-ops and they all recommended the survey and ballot systems, had anybody used co-op ballot and didn't like them, or it's just they weren't used?
Great question. So let's see, the other cooperative who brought up Co-op Ballot as a secondary option, they have yet to have their election. So this would also be their inaugural year. They're in the same boat that we are. And their election actually occurs next week. And so that was a part of the hesitation, staff's recommendation that, man, these other folks haven't been through a whole election cycle and can't give us an accurate review of how it went. So they'll be completing their election next week, and I'll follow up with them to see how it went.
Is there any way we could delay this decision till after we hear how these new guys did? Because I mean, a couple of things, obviously it's $60,000. But then I really liked that they had a online voting platform that you said was intuitive and good. I think that it seems so obvious to me that if we allowed online voting, we would have a huge increase in participation.
Sure, but I'd love to speak to that. So Survey and Ballot Systems also offers it, offers an online voting, pretty plug and play option for us that would actually integrate directly into Smart Hub, whereas Co-op Ballot System or Co-op Ballot, they don't integrate with any of our NISC and Smart Hub platforms. And so yes, they do offer that. However, our recommendation is if and when we do want to go online, we'd like to make sure there's that added layer of security for the member logging into their account, just to instill more trust from an online voting system. So yes, they both offer it. However, Survey and Ballot Systems comes with a nice integration for security. So, yeah.
I move to approve resolution 2024-04.
Second. Tim, more discussion.
So I asked for some information about voter participation, and let me just preface that with, my understanding is that the recommendation from the staff, just to confirm this, is that we would not engage in online voting this year. We would become familiar with this company through the paper ballot system, and then perhaps put our toe in that water next year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's the recommendation. I will just say I do not want to interfere with staff recommendation on this, because we are far removed from how this works in the past, and the effort and work that staff have to put into this. I don't think I don't feel I have any transparency in that. So they come and they say, this will make our life better and have a secure election. I'm gonna go, yes, because they've done that time and again for years, right? So, but I do have a concern about, and one of my questions was the voter turnout, if you will, through this balloting system company. And it, you know, my recollection is that LPEA has a relatively high voter turnout compared to co-ops across Colorado and even across the United States. We have hit the top a lot, right? And so in a couple of these cases, the averages that I was presented, you know, that was the peak of what these systems and this company actually produced, right? I don't know how much that is due to what the co-op and staff do in communication versus how it's handled by the company itself, right? So that's a big question mark for me. And I think, you know, I'm asking, I guess, is there additional things that we should budget for so that we are communicating well? If they don't, how these ballots can be returned. The other piece, I think, and I asked this question as well, which is about ballot drop boxes. And I know that in the past, because we've used the county clerk, at least in La Plata County, I don't know what happens in Arch 11, but those drop boxes are, there's a lot of relatively large pool of them. Lots of different places you can put them back into the box, right? And under this scenario, we would shrink that to just two, one in our headquarters in Pagosa and one here, right? And I have a concern about how we address that. How can we address that? I think we do not want to see a diminution of turnout if we can help it, just by virtue of this change. What do we have to do to make sure that we are keeping our numbers up, if you will, and even increasing them? It's an open-ended question, and I don't know that I need necessarily an answer now, but I do think if there's a need for us to do more versus this company, should we add additional budget or be prepared to do so in order to get the turnout? That's my question.
Do you have an answer to that, Amanda?
Sure, and I think, Tim, your analysis of the average voter participation, both nationally and in our state, survey and ballot systems, they did include, you know, some commentary that there is such a wide range of sophistication and effort as it relates to the communication efforts around these elections. And so they did point that out, that, you know, there is a wide range. And they're happy to partner with us on that. And I think that's a great observation. I would also note in relation to ballot boxes, so we have begun to look at how we can add those within our existing budget and where. And also Tiffany has provided us with a recommendation on how we could enhance the quantity of drop-off boxes without causing confusion in the county. And so we're really working through how can we not take away, how can we retain, but also make sure that people understand, although we're changing our third-party facilitators, we want to keep status quo.
That's good reassurance. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nicole has your all.
Yeah, just very quickly to comment on your comment, I agree that, you know, it's great to support staff when they give recommendations because they're the ones who are doing this day in and day out. But I do think it's our role to offer policy direction, and I think that we have an opportunity to instigate online voting, and I think that that's, to me, way bigger deal than drop boxes. Is if someone could just vote online, that would,
Right, but I believe they've outlined a plan
well, this recommendation would be for no online voting
for 1 year,
for 1 year.
for this year. in the
Yeah.
midst of it. I personally agree with
Yeah.
I agree with that recommendation. I think that's wise, right? I don't think we have had the time or opportunity to have a discussion around online voting and what it entails. And I don't think we have the time to do it for this election either. And I think that's what I heard staff saying. And so I think this is a great compromise that gets us through this year, this election, business as usual, and plenty of time to prepare for online voting in the following. So that's my opinion. And I will make a disclosure, I'm up for reelection. I would like to have online voting, right? I think that would be great, but I don't feel that we have the discussion and understand it well enough what would be involved in order for the staff to then be able to implement something for this election. And I'd rather be safe than sorry at this point. That's just my opinion.
Free to disagree.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing, because I appreciate the research and all the information that's provided here. And I think this came into the staff recommendation, but it wasn't clearly pointed out that confidence and reliability are an extremely important part of any election. And then, of course, for LPEA's election. And I think there were several things that came through for SBS that help us maintain that level of confidence with our membership. There's volume, support, success, historical success there. Those are important things that I think we can relate to the membership. And I would probably jump on board with Tim in terms of not feeling prepared to make so many changes at once. And not because they're not good changes, but because I think the more differences, the less confidence we will have from the membership. And I think, that, we deal with confidence on a daily basis in this organization, and not just as it relates to elections. We see people pointing the finger all the time and saying, not sure I trust that, or I'm not sure I agree with the way that's going. And so I think it is great that we're focused on that. And that's kind of where a lot of my support for this staff recommendation comes in. Kohler.
I want to back up what you had both said, as I would support that for that very reason too. I've had a lot of communication with members, and over the special meeting last month, they were very upset because they didn't feel like they had the knowledge that this was going to happen. I think this would be another thing if we went to online this year, that would stir that fire and build on it. I'd like to work towards it, but not this year. We'll do it next year. We're already on the clock.
And we're all three running.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. All right, back online. Kirsten.
Yeah, thank you. I realize there's not a second for this motion yet, but before I do that second, we shouldn't do online yet, and I think it should be part of our communication plan.
We're good with the second, so.
Yeah, we're good with the second. Okay, so we're in discussion? Okay, well, then
Yes.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion. And use the recommended language from the staff I move to approve resolution 2024-04 and to appoint survey and ballot systems to serve as the independent third party to facilitate LPEA's 2024 annual meeting election. I think that second piece of that sentence is important to include in the motion. It's a friendly motion, a friendly amendment.
Tim, did you make the initial motion?
No,
I think John was first. Are you okay with that amendment, John? And I guess to clarify, it's just the complete statement that's in the resolution language.
But doesn't it actually say that in now therefore be it resolved?
I think
So
what she's
yeah,
saying
it's
is,
supportable.
Yeah, I think,
But I think it says it.
yeah, I think what she was sort of saying is that I think you moved to approve resolution 2022-04, and then she was just reading the entire sentence out of the memo. I moved to approve 2022-04 independent third party appointment and to appoint survey and ballot systems to serve as the independent third party to facilitate LPEA's 2024 annual meeting and election.
John, you're right, it is sort of redundant, but I think it's a good
Yeah,
redundant.
2024-04 actually says, yes, so, yeah, except
You accept the.
more words.
Friendly amendment, I think maybe is the word that's often used in Robert's rules. Okay, so that's been accepted. I do need acceptance from the second.
You got it.
Okay, thank you, Kohler. All right. So the amended motion is now open, still open for discussion, if there's any more discussion on that. The amended motion is still open.
So the amendment becomes, we have to.
No, I think it was a friendly amendment where John didn't, as the primary movement, didn't object to the motion language. It's not like substantively different, it's just a change in the motion language.
Yeah.
So Rachel was.
Yes, Rachel does have her hand up. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks. So just a clarification, this is a one-time, one-term kind of contract with SBS. And it sounded like if we don't like them, we can go some other route, which might be to return to Tiffany on the off years based on her little note.
Tiffany has indicated she will not be able to perform this for us in the future. She said that this was an appropriate time in our relationship to.
Just let the sheets.
Her letter was confusing, because that's how I read it as well, Rachel. She's like, goodbye, but hey, it was an off year, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe
We'll still be friends.
She's extremely friendly and helpful with us through this transition. She has really gone above and beyond to help support us through this transition.
I hear a note of regret that she has to say no. That's what.
Yeah. But I think you asked two questions, Rachel. One was, are we committing to a one-year contract? And I believe the answer, I'm getting a nod of the head that says yes. And the other one is,
great, thank you.
can we go back to Tiffany? And it seems like that's maybe not the hardest no, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, it sounded like only on the off years, maybe. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Just the resolution doesn't say anything about a time frame.
This would be a one-year contract, and let me look at the resolution.
Open. I don't know if we need it.
Be resolved to negotiate and enter into the review and agreements.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the pending motion is for 2024, so if as the motion stands, as Kirsten has amended it, we would only enter into, it would only give us the authorization to do this for 2020.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other discussion?
Dan Huntington.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, this is pretty much understood. We do this every year, even with Tiffany. Appoint a third party. And what was the discussion with SBS on working with our election committee? Were they willing to work with them?
Oh, absolutely. They're very willing to integrate with our current system, right? And they do provide on-site support the way that Tiffany would provide on-site support for our election, but our election supervisory committee will still serve all of its functions. And if we're gonna go through policy 105, you'll see that certain aspects of the election are delegated to the independent third party, and other aspects are delegated to the election supervisory committee. They work together in concert, but they also sort of have their own individual aspects. So that shouldn't be any problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. More discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of that amended motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Control? Any abstentions? I see none. Okay. You got that tally, Randy?
11-1 is
Yeah.
what I have.
Motion passes. Yeah, agenda modification suggestion. So we have 2 more items in board action. If there are no objections within the board, I'll suggest that we move those to just before the report section, just before section 9. So we'll go through executive session. We'll come out of executive session, tackle any actions resulting from executive session, and then we'll hit E and F on the board action agenda. I see no complaints because everyone wants a break. So take 10.
Or do we, okay.
I think we're back live. Yeah, and we have Matt on with us. Matt, we're to your section. So public update, if you would.
Great, thank you. Nice to see all of you. A few updates. We're going to kind of cover it in 3 tranches. The first, being the FERC side. The second, just being the general, exit, what we've done since the last meeting. And then the third one being the Tri-State Electric Resource Plan that's in front of the Colorado PUC. So at the FERC side, there have been several different filings since we last met. On March 29th, Tri-State FERC, issued an order that addressed the compliance filing and the debates that United and Tri-State were having with regard to the calculation methodology. You'll recall that a key part of that was how to treat the assets that United had purchased from Tri-State for purposes of the calculation. Tri-State actually prevailed on that issue. So from there, Tri-State was directed to make an additional compliance filing, updating its CTP to reflect, some of the tweaks and things like that FERC wanted it to make to its tariff. They have made that filing on April 12th. I think our initial read is that it doesn't result in any kind of material changes. We're in the process of reviewing that as it just came in this past Friday. In addition to that, also on the CTP, appeals have been filed by both Tri-State and United. Our expectation, Tri-State actually filed in the 10th Circuit in Denver, as opposed to in the DC Circuit. Right now, we expect those appeals to be consolidated and they'll be heard in either the 10th Circuit or the DC Circuit. So that's kind of the update going across the CTP, those 3 items. Kirsten, I could take questions on that now, or we can hit the exit and the ERP real fast, whatever y'all's preference is.
I think she's saying keep going.
Okay, cool. This will be quick. So on the exit side, following the vote on March 25th, we've made the notifications to Tri-State. We filed a courtesy copy of that at FERC, so that's been taken care of. So we'll be looking at next steps from that perspective. And then on the Tri-State Electric Resource Plan, Tri-State has to make a filing on Monday that basically reflects some updates on the USDA side in terms of the new era funding that they're seeking. And after that, I think that case will really start to begin in earnest. As you'll recall, we're a joint intervener in that case along with Mountain Parks. So we'll be, assessing the strategy for that. Answer testimonies due May 22nd under the current schedule. I think how that case unfolds will sort of depend on what Tri-State files in its supplemental filing on Monday at the Colorado PUC. So that's the update across federal and the state. Happy to take any questions before we go into executive session.
Go ahead, Kirsten.
Yeah, Matt, you'll tell me if this is for public consumption. I think it is, concerning the CTP and the stuff that United and Tri-State and the arguments that are going on. So there was an April 1 turnover for United, right? So they are now not from Tri-State, although they're still they're still in contention with how much they have to pay. Is that correct?
That's right, because I don't recall their exact cutover date off the top of my head as I'm sitting here right now. But the number, remains subject to the appeal.
Okay.
So, and I don't know whether there's going to be further motions practiced between them on the calculation in front of FERC or not.
Okay, and we are still members of Tri-State for 2 more years, so that payment is going to be important since Tri-State is no longer going to be selling electricity to United. That payment is going to be important. So do you know if something still has to be paid while they're still deciding on how much they're paying?
I don't know how they've worked out what would be put up. I believe they were required to put up the as filed value.
I see.
Which is substantially higher and then it'd be subject to refund, but I'm not 100% certain on what they've worked out as between themselves. While that number is, going through the remaining process.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else for Matt in public session before we move on into executive? Okay, I don't see anything else. That then brings us to the section on the agenda where we have scheduled executive session. Tim?
We move that we go into executive session as per the modified agenda.
Sorry.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor of moving into executive session, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll move into executive session. Give everyone a few minutes to transfer over online.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Yeah, let's start back into our public agenda. I don't believe we have any actions coming out of executive session. So as discussed prior to break, we'll be reverting back to agenda item 5E, which is review of policy 108 requests. I'm going to tap the brakes just for a second here, make sure everybody's in. All right, so I'll start this one off, and basically I'm going to read into the record what we're calling as a statement of facts, which is related to two requests for information from membership related to policy 108, and it's been redacted for confidentiality, but it contains all the information that we deem necessary to review right now. The intent here is not just to make a board action or board decision based on information that is not available to the public. So we want to make it clear, kind of why the board is taking the action that they are, provide as much transparency into this policy 108 request, and really also allow members to understand the process. And so I think this will be helpful. So I'm just going to read off of the statement right now. So as I mentioned, there are two policy 108 requests. So request number 1, an LPEA member has requested, quote, a copy of the LPEA grant application for the PACE program that was announced on the LPEA website on March 6th. Legal counsel's initial review of this request indicated that the requested material is not available to members due to privacy or other protection. Specifically, this material is protected by policy 108 2D1E because it is subject to a non-disclosure agreement or similar agreement, and it is further protected under policy 108 2D1F because the documentation or information constitutes a trade secret, process, program, or trademark. In this case, LPEA contracted with a third-party contractor for assistance with drafting its PACE grant application. As such, the grant application was largely prepared by that contractor using its trade secrets and unique process or program. The contractor has requested that we protect this information on its behalf, as it might allow competitors to determine what makes the contractor's applications particularly successful, and thus it might undermine their business model. Moreover, the contractor has informed us that it consulted with the Office of General Counsel at the Rural Utility Service, RUS, at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, who is the administrator of the PACE grant program. The contractor conveyed to staff that the RUS considers the PACE grant applications to be confidential and will not disclose them without specific authorization of the applicants or certain specific procedural orders, such as a court order or a congressional subpoena. As the grant consulting market is competitive, Council recommends that LPEA protect this confidential information on behalf of its third-party contractor that has requested such confidentiality. Legal counsel recommends the board reject the member's request for this information. Should we proceed with one motion at this point? And then, so there is another request that has a statement of fact, but maybe we'll just get through request number 1 first.
That seems reasonable to keep things organized.
So people can keep it in their head. So let's see. If you're following along in the memo, if there is a motion regarding this, staff has made a recommendation. Not, I will move. I'll go ahead and do it. I move to deny the request to disclose confidential information related to LPEA's PACE grant application. I have a second from John. More discussion on this one. Kohler, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for reading that and for that approach. Because I think one of the key things with some of our members is the transparency on this. This puts it right out front, our reasoning. It's a defendable reason, so I want to thank the staff for doing that.
Appreciate that. And I think we're all on the same page there, that, we want to bring members along as much as possible within the realms of confidentiality. Any other discussion on this motion? See none. Okay. All in favor of the motion to deny the policy 108 request, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 1 abstention from Joe Lewandowski. All right, motion passes. I'm going to move on to the statement of fact regarding request number 2. An LPEA member has requested, quote, a digital copy of the third-party report referenced in the Durango Herald, February 17th, 2024, related to the network load created by solar arrays. As an initial matter, a review of the Durango Herald article does not contain the word report, but rather refers to, quote, an analysis of the grid by third-party experts. This language is also not attributable to LPEA as a direct quotation, but it is the reporter's own language. The third-party analysis referred to in the article is an analysis performed by a third-party data analytics company named Analyst, using system data provided by LPEA. As the board may be aware, Analyst provides LPEA with grid visibility, engineering insights, and integration with key devices on the grid. Analyst, the company, provides these services through a monitoring and analytics application. One of the many areas of analysis provided by this application is the measurement of minimum daytime load on LPEA circuits that LPEA then can use to verify compliance with Colorado Solar interconnection regulations, for CCR 723-3, sections 3850 through section 3859. This is the analysis of the grid by third-party experts referenced in the article. Generally, this analysis is publicly available to LPEA's members on its website in the form of an interactive map that identifies where minimum daytime loading is approaching the limits set by Colorado Solar interconnection regulations. There is no quote-unquote report that describes any network risks or associated costs. This is merely data analytics from a third-party data analytics company that is providing grid visibility. Therefore, this analysis is already publicly available in the form of the interactive map, and no additional information exists to disclose. Any information beyond that currently disclosed would involve access to the analyst's proprietary software to unpack the data analytics they use to provide this grid visibility. This information is protected under a non-disclosure agreement that is part of LPEA's contract with the analyst and also constitutes trade secrets of the analyst. Therefore, the disclosure of the analyst's algorithm or programming used to provide the analysis is protected from disclosure under LPEA Policy 108, 2D1E, and also F. Indeed, LPEA's IT department likely does not have the ability to reverse engineer the software even if it wanted to. That is part of the reason why we actually contract with third parties who specialize in providing these services. Therefore, because the third-party analysis is already publicly available, there's nothing more to disclose. There is no report from a third party with analysis of network risks or associated costs. The third-party analysis only constitutes grid visibility that is currently shared with LPEA's members on its website, and any information about that grid visibility would encroach upon the third party's protected trade secret related to its algorithms and software. That's the statement of fact regarding request number, policy 108, request number 2. I'd be happy to make another motion or somebody else.
So, the question, do we need a motion? There's not a report, right? I mean, from what I understand, there's nothing really to hand over. It's already out.
Seems like it's to refer, like maybe we could confirm that we're going to refer them back to, this statement and that, but to.
Yeah, we're not, I get what you're saying. We're not denying something, we're not denying a request because the request, but we're suggesting that they're requesting something that doesn't exist.
Well, it does, it says it does exist. It's just, we're referring them to that map.
Yeah, so there is an analysis, right, that the newspaper report, there's no report. The request was for a report. That report doesn't exist. There is an analysis that was referred to in the story. That does exist and is publicly available. But I suppose that could be the response of the board is that, this to basically say the story refers to an analysis. That analysis is publicly available on our website. And that's it. And then maybe just have a footnote to that or an additional sentence that says there is no report that identifies what were the
there is not a report to disclose.
Yeah, there was a sort of a request for a report that discloses network
analysis.
Yeah, right. I think Cole's right. I think it's support. What do we say? Or hereby instructs you to go to the website.
I mean, there is the part where we are suggesting that we cannot disclose this third-party algorithm.
Make them come back and get report correctly.
So, yeah, so there was a big request included, the desire to have access. The purpose of the request was to have access to be able to understand network risks and associated costs. And there is no analysis of network risks or associated costs with the analysis that was referred to in the newspaper.
If this member wants to continue down this path, then they need to ask their channels, ask it properly, be specific, and the board can take action on it. As
speak up, John.
Thank you. Sorry, I said if this particular member wants to continue down this path, they can use the correct channels, they can formally ask in the correct form And at this moment in time, as it's currently asked, I agree with Cole. I don't think there's an action here. And if he wants it, you should come back and ask for it a different way.
So I mean, at this point, then my response would be that no report exists. There is an analysis. That analysis is publicly available.
Here's the URL.
Here's the
Here's the
URL.
And I think we probably owe him a direct response to that question.
Yeah.
One of the service people, if we haven't already done that.
Yeah, we would.
And this is no longer a board matter, it's simply.
It's not a
It's not
policy
an
one way.
actionable.
It's not a
It's
policy
not-
one way.
That's right, that's right. It's not a one way, so he can come back and try to get the data the way he wants to get the data.
Okay.
Or she, I don't know.
Agreed.
So, yeah, no action on the second request. Very well.
Kirsten has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Kirsten.
Yeah, so in case folks want to know where that is on our website, if you Google LPEA and can solar be installed in my area, you will get to that map. Although for you in District 1, there's nothing showing in District 1. So I would like to make sure that gets updated.
That's because there are no constraints in District 1 right now. Dan is indicating that
Okay.
the reason nothing shows is because there are currently no constraints in District.
Okay, so only the yellow, the orange, and the red show up. Everything else means it's open. So if we look in the other districts, the places that are not yellow, orange, or red, they don't have to worry about it. They can go with whatever, they can do whatever other constraints, of course, we have to worry about. But there aren't any of these kinds of constraints on it. Is that correct?
Yes, they meet this particular screen from the Colorado regulations. So
Okay.
we've sort of made that screening data available ahead of time. So if you aren't identified as red or yellow, consider yourself green.
Great, super. So full disclosure, I am looking at a very small array at my house in Archuleta County and pleased to be doing it. And maybe someday we'll be in this yellow saying, "Ooh, you guys have too much solar. Let's worry about it." Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Okay, anything else on kind of this policy 108 before we move on to CEO selection committee? Item F. All right, item F. Sort of 3 documents contained in the board packet. And the goal / expectation here is to pass a resolution that that creates a CEO selection committee. And I think we actually have two resolution or two proposed motions there. One to create a committee and one to approve the statement of function for the CEO selection committee. You would like to make those motions or the motion?
I move to approve resolution 2024-05 CEO selection committee.
Thank you, John Lee.
I'll second.
Seconded by Tim. Any discussion on that? Tim, go ahead.
It doesn't explicitly state anything about administrative support for this committee. It does say that there's a budget and that it can draw in, but I just wonder if there's making that a little more explicit might be a good thing. I don't know, maybe not, but I didn't catch this till later. So.
I recall some text in the statement of function that the committee can reach out to staff, but maybe that's not the level.
I don't know if it's explicit. I mean, I'm just going through the experience when we had the result of Jessica's meeting. And, you know, that was a committee of the whole, but we had to really rely on HR and some others who assisted us in doing that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's part of that same budget, or I just wanted to bring that out. You know, there's a need for administrative support potentially. The
what extent should we
What are
do
your
that?
thoughts? I mean, is it,
I mean, I think generally we have a pool of administrative support for the board, right? And the board needs to make decisions for the cooperative. One of the prime reasons that staff is here is to execute the directive from the board. So I mean, I don't know that we need a significant like budget line item for staff time on this, in as much as the staff that will likely be tasked with assisting this are salaried staff who will be here to support the board. As far as.
Do you think this covers it?
I think this covers it, right? I think if you look at the statement of functions, it says to request any information it requires from directors, officers, employees, and advisors of LPEA. Perhaps we could add, maybe when we get to statement of functions, we could say to request any information and assistance or something like that. And that is probably the most straightforward way to cover it.
all right, well then, I lost track there. I got a motion in a second. More
We're in
discussion.
discussion.
Yeah, a couple of changes to please consider.
And just, sorry, but just let's just be clear, like we are gonna have two motions here. So the first one is
Just the resolution.
the resolution to create the committee, and the second one will be to adopt the statement of function. So if the comments are on statement of function.
It is, so I'll
Okay.
right, is that the?
Yeah,
that'll be the second.
yeah, just sort of to kind of keep it a little cleaner and propose bifurcating these two motions.
So we're talking about the resolution.
Just the resolution language at this point.
So then the only thing I have on that is under the now therefore be it resolved. We call it the statement of functions, but the statement of functions is actually titled CEO Selection Committee Statement of Functions. I don't know if that needs to be included in there or not.
I think we can do that. That sounds like a pretty reasonable
Yeah,
adjustment. For this particular statement of functions, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Kohler. Okay, anything else on the resolution language? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting resolution 2024-05?
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposed? Or abstentions? Okay, that resolution passes. And then the second, would be to adopt the statement of functions. So we need a motion for that.
Also,
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Second.
Thank you, Kohler. Okay, moved and seconded to adopt the CEO Selection Committee Statement of Function. Discussion.
just to note that there was a correction or an addition to this that Graham put, so my motion applies to that.
With the correction, and we can clarify, right?
Yeah, I think there are a couple corrections, right? One was that it sort of transitioned from I think this might be updated that we got. Yeah, so this is updated to the first correction was that we used company instead of cooperative in one of the paragraphs. We corrected that. The other one was that the under number 2, membership of the committee, it should be updated to say the board president shall have the authority to appoint. Oh, wait, so it says the membership of the committee shall be made up of no more than 4 directors, one of which must be a member of the executive committee and be appointed by the president according to policies 110(2) C and D. That was one. And then I guess we pose, as Tim had suggested, that number 3D would be amended to say to request any information and assistance it requires from directors, officers, employees, and advisors of LPEA. So we'd be adding and assistance to that section.
Are both of those modifications clear?
Can I add to them?
Sure. Yeah.
So in that last one, that 3D, to request any information, I'd just like to consider changing any to relative.
Relevant.
Relative, yeah. Information. And then the only other thing, this is just wordsmithing on 6, the procedural matters in the 6th line. It says the chair of the committees.
Okay.
This committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Color, just to make sure I'm clear on a 3D, you would say to request any relevant information. And, or do you want to replace any with relevant, or do you want to put?
I want to replace it.
So it'll be to request relevant information and assistance.
Yeah.
Okay. Got that correct? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those, and just trying to make sure everyone's, you know, if you have questions on what those modifications are, please ask, so we know exactly what we're voting on. Joe?
Yeah, I was just curious, the last time we did the search, I'm looking at number 2, the last sentence. President shall have the authority to appoint no more than 2 non-director committee members. Was that done? Tim, do you remember, was that done before?
No, the committee was the entire board.
Oh, it was the entire board. Okay.
No,
And
no.
is the idea there that maybe we have staff members on or bring in someone from the outside?
So the idea is an outside person, and just to be clear on this, like I have this, you know, based on if we stand this committee up with this statement of function, I have the committee in mind. And so all of those people are tapped at this point. The staff comment, was in consideration, and staff through Graham came back with a recommendation that having an individual staff member on that committee would be difficult for that person, and that staff's input should be handled in a different way, so that all of staff's input could be collected and processed, so the staff would certainly have input, but that it would be not through one individual member on that search committee.
And when are we, what's the timeline here as far as the committee goes?
Yeah, if we get this stood up, so to speak, I'll announce the committee, I'll announce my appointment to the committee right away, and we'll get to work on it. Anything else? And we're clear on those, I guess, I won't call them minor changes, but the changes that have been proposed.
Give it Janelle Stratton.
All right, then, all in favor of approving the CEO selection committee statement of function, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion passes. And as indicated, I'll go ahead and give you the list of people that I'm appointing to that committee. John Witchell as the chair of the committee, Rachel Landis, Nicole Pitcher, Tim Wheeler, and Melissa Youssef as the outside, and one, not two, is what I'm appointing. So that's who will be the search committee. I think it's really important. I think it's clear in the resolution that, you know, this is the board's job and the search committee is the footwork here. The search committee is what is going to be used to make this process efficient. I'm not going to say quick because we want to spend the time that we need to spend on it, but to make it be able to make progress on sort of a weekly basis, not a monthly basis, so we can dig in. Maybe conspicuously absent would be myself from that committee. And this is going to loop back into a topic that Kirsten's going to bring up later. You know, I feel like we have an awful lot of tasks in front of the board and staff at this point. And I wanted to make sure that my time is available for many of those tasks and largely interfacing with Graham as the interim right now. We spend quite a bit of time together, and I want to make sure that that continues to be available. But of course, we also have you know, power supply, strategic planning, and several other things in the mix. And so I felt like this committee could function as I have appointed it. So that is the end of that agenda item. Rolling us back into our normal course of agenda. Working lunch, no, we're doing that. Yeah, into the reports section of the agenda. So section 9, first one being attorney report. Have something ran. Let's move over here. Yeah, right.
The attorney now. I'll just refer the board to my written report and take whatever questions you have.
Kirsten.
Yeah, I don't know if I should see this in the attorney report or in the CEO report, but you were tasked to finding a replacement for your indoor, your task, your functions that you were doing as general counsel. I'm wondering how we're doing on that.
So what I've done, and communicate to the whole board about this, I've communicated to a lot of directors individually about this, is that to the degree that it's within my regular course of business to analyze and then review as the CEO, I've kept that on my own plate, because to find an outside counsel, refer a question to them, wait 2 weeks to get it back, you know, wait to go through their conflict check and stuff like that, isn't, I don't think it's valuable use of the company's resources or anybody's time. So I've been retaining that work, and I've been delegating larger projects that require significant time and thought to outside counsel. So for instance, you know, we have some post-closing matters on our sale of Fast Track Communications that are pretty complex and complicated and require quite a bit of time, and I have delegated that to our outside counsel who assisted Fast Track as part of that sale. So they are handling that. And then as other matters come up that would require, you know, significant amount of time, I'm prepared to delegate those as necessary. But for sort of day-to-day functions of the general counsel, I think it's just was going to be timing and efficient to delegate all of those. So I don't plan on delegating minor tasks.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Anything else on attorney report? Okay. Moving into the board reports. Starting, yeah, and as we have sort of migrated, you know, just the highlights or unique things or stuff that the board needs to be made aware of, or from the rest of the board questions to people getting their reports. So start off with Roundup Foundation.
Any questions? Yes.
There were a lot of financial reports.
Yeah, I had done it this month, and I should have just done a screenshot of that. My apologies, they just added all the one Excel spreadsheet.
I couldn't tell which one was the most current.
The one that's most current, I'm sorry about that.
Because they're labeled by month for a while when they kind of stuff. Anyway, it's not a big deal.
The one that's most current has GOSA Community Initiative, $3,000 was line 2. That's the second line.
Do you have a page?
Number should be the last page.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So the other way.
But
Go
go
the other way.
So you're looking at the Excel sheet, if you look at the Wanda,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
you like, hopefully it would just be the 18th one, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah, so it's the 17th one.
It's
Page
what?
17 out of 18 on the, if you're opening up the book on board.
So I apologize. This isn't the whole book. Janelle versus.
The last
just
entry.
the last one.
With Pagosa Community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Apologize.
No problem.
No, I know what it's like. I was trying to get the Excel spreadsheet. I haven't done Excel in years, so I'm sitting there going,
So it's not one of your computers, is it this one?
No, there was an issue between the mouse and the floor.
Gotcha. Anything else for the roundup? On to CREA.
Ooh, my turn?
Surprise.
Okay, great. Let me see here. The CREA Board of Directors did have a regular meeting. I have the board report in the packet. I've already talked about the things about the direct pay that really intrigued me, that I think you guys should know as well. Poudre Valley did an interesting thing. They used congressionally directed spending to get their microgrid project done, which I thought that was kind of an interesting way to do that. The Colorado Energy Office has been working on that new clean energy plan, but it has been postponed for the season because everybody's back and forth arguing about it. The net metering working group is still in process. Polis wants a proposal by August 1st, but that's not known if it's realistic at this point. There's a webinar coming up on the implications of RTOs for electric distribution cooperatives on May 16th. I think that will be pretty interesting. There was only about 10 or 11 people that went to that webinar on the Sun Powered Student Challenge, and I think LPEA's with me and our 2 staff members made 3 out of the 10. So if I have to wager a guess, it might fall pretty flat, if you don't mind asking.
Okay.
Dave, my great cohort here, has agreed to back me up on the next 2 meetings because I'm not able to attend those. Graham, if they haven't hit you up already, they're gonna tell you all about new model and pricing structures for safety and loss that they want to hit you up with. And let me see here. I think that those were the primary things I wanted to point out. Anybody have any questions?
You sent a link for that May.
I will find it for you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Tim. So, I think it's the second page of your report. It's about HB 24-33. It says a motion to oppose passes. Was there a reason for
What are
opposing?
you referring to, sir?
I'm sorry?
Which number is it? I'm sorry.
HB 24-3030, air quality permitting.
4-30.
It's in the middle of page 2. Okay, 2 other questions.
Okay, well, I'm looking for it because I don't happen to see it in the middle of my
I think
report.
it's HB 24-1330 is
What did I say?
You said 30-30.
Oh, I'm sorry, 13. I didn't see that.
Okay, so this has to do with air quality permitting processes for oil and gas facilities. Basically, on the CREA board, there is not much appetite for anything that is going to limit any type of oil and gas activity. So if I'm remembering this particular one correctly, it would have required that there was no permitting during the ozone attainment season, which is roughly, they try to modify it, make it shorter, but they just were not going for it whatsoever. So that's why it did not pass.
Did we vote to oppose?
On that one,
Yes.
did we vote to oppose?
Did LPA?
I'm just making sure. Let me make absolutely sure I'm talking about the right one. LPEA. I'm trying to make sure, Tim, that I've got the right one. If the motion to oppose. I honestly don't know. I would have to look that up for you, sir.
Okay. And the next one.
And it is 1330.
All right.
Okay.
1330. So the next question was 1339 again. What was rationale behind,
Let me
that
find my
one-
notes. I have more notes on it sometimes in my book.
and if you want to answer me later, that's fine.
Well, I do have more things written down in my books that I put down in here sometimes, so.
So another bill, the CREA moved to oppose, which is disproportionately impacted communities of air pollution,
Right.
which would increase the AQCC commissions to 9.
Yeah, and they wanted to increase the number of air quality commissioners. Yep, I remember that.
Including one from
A climate scientist. Yep,
a disproportionately impacted community in clients.
right.
Anyway,
I will look up more of my notes in there and I will get back with you on that one.
and then one final question. This is on the last page of the report,
Yes, sir.
and it talks about Jim Matheson,
Mm-hmm.
and it says something about taking shovels from EPA, and I just wondered what the
Yeah.
heck that was.
Every once in a while, a comment will be made in there that I actually put quotes in parentheses around, and I specifically put them in my report because they do intrigue me for one reason or another. Jim Matheson, and they are having trouble with some of the new changes that the EPA is trying to implement, and so they're trying to figure out how to slow that down, we'll say.
Okay, so it's not, it's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else?
Thank you, Molly. You live in Silverton, taking shovels from the EPA might have a different meaning than a big wheel.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right, then, Western United.
Meeting is 25th. So I hadn't had a meeting in a couple months, so I'll be heading up to them.
Open, Kirsten.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Kirsten, go ahead.
Yeah, will you please follow up with Western United about the conductor and or transformer new regulations that were being put in? I don't know if those got killed or not. They were going to increase the cost and also the ability to manufacture those. And it also comes up around some discussion about the new transmission lines that we're putting in, and whether we're putting in the kind that can be aggregated, but are a little smarter, and we're able to reduce the size we need because we're able to smarterly, that's a new word, use it. So can you just ask about that? And if I need to clarify that question to you, Dave, I certainly will. I know it came off kind of weird.
No, I understand what you're talking about. And I think they had something on the hot transport material.
They did.
Core material.
They did.
So it's a positive. So, but I'll get more information directly from.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question.
Yes.
Can we get some sort of patronage capital from Western United?
Yes. It's required to go on.
Do we have any idea how much that is and when?
They can do it at the end of the fiscal year.
And that's in June.
Yeah.
Oh, there's an allocation or?
Yeah, there's an allocation.
Allocation.
Yeah, so that would be a lot.
So that go in the financial, because it's an anticipation. Very bottom, other margin.
All right, anything else for David? Kirsten, go again.
All right. Yeah, I just want to add to that answer. It's an allocation, but they also do a really fast turnaround on retirement, because it's actually a corporation, not a co-op. So they're able to. We're just looking back a little bit of time on when we actually get those monies. That's it.
Yep, good clarification. Thanks, Kirsten. Any other Western United questions, comments? All right, tri-state reports are published in the board pack. Any questions or comments on those?
Anybody attending? I don't think you could virtually.
You could. I was not able to attend. I had wanted to, but with where I happened to be located at that moment, I didn't have internet. But we're still trying to get some board members to at least sit in and listen every time. Graham, I know you guys used to listen to these.
Yeah, I this was just trouble for me because I sort of had my schedule a month or so in advance and wasn't able to sort of pivot previous existing obligations to get to this. And it just was sort of a bad luck timing on my with my existing schedule, but kind of going into May and stuff, I have myself set up to have the time to attend CREA manager meetings, tri-state manager meetings, and all of those sorts of things. I was able to get onto one tri-state manager meeting and attend that telephonically, but for their board meetings, I'm gonna have my schedule built around being able to attend those like Jessica did.
Super. I'll try to step up my attempts to be on those because I know your time is valuable. Thank you.
And no one attended the actual annual meeting. I mean, Dwayne did call us out. I got a transcript of this.
Yeah.
Of his speech. He made a point of.
Tim, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing what you're saying.
I said that, it seems like none of us were at the annual meeting, but that Dwayne did call out LPEA, called us on the carpet a little bit in his, speech.
Thanked us for 15 years of being a great customer.
Yeah, more than 15.
Yeah, that's what I thought he said. It was a little muddled, but yes.
Nicole.
Would we open the door for consideration, for reappointing a board member, or just still not while we're in litigation with the LaPlante County case?
I think that's something I would like to refer back to our litigation counsel on that, right? You know, I mean, honestly, we're sort of stuck in a holding pattern with that case, waiting for court action, and so, you know, I think it's something that's worth revisiting from time to time with them. So I will take that up with them and see.
All right, anything else related to tri-state reports? All right, that is the end of the agenda. Oh, Tim.
One question. So the contract committee has definitely been postponed, right?
Mm-hmm.
With no startup time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any additional discussion or business before we close out the meeting? I see Joe.
Yeah, it's page 220, 226. It's the consultant and contractor report. And let me see, it's refers to vendor 5520 for marketing consulting. And I was just kind of wondering what that work was or is. Anyone can tell me. It's like the 9th one down, I think.
Which
page is that again?
It's 5520. I don't think I should.
It's the contract report. It's the very end.
Marketing.
Almost.
Marketing consulting.
It's just past the financials.
Five, 520, okay. Yeah, this is a communication strategy consultant, right? I mean, yeah, so it's sort of helping us formulate our plan on that I sort of discussed in broad terms. We have a person who's familiar with our industry, is a communications consultant. That's who we're working with.
Thanks.
And Kirsten.
Yeah, thank you. I know we've had been talking about strategic planning and trying to get that kick-started. I know we've been looking at trying to do it in spring, and spring has sprung. So I would like to, I am of two minds on this. One, I'd like to get that started right away. And on the other hand, we have an election coming up and you'll have a new board in September. So I don't know whether we say, hey, let's do this now and get it going, or do we wait until after the election in September when we have a new board? And I would like people to discuss this, please.
Well, I'll start, Kirsten, and I'm not sure I have a strong opinion on those two options, but you know, we were targeting spring, and staff had done some homework there and reached out to at least one option. Am I right, Graham? Or a couple options for, you know, to bring in some assistance for strategic planning. And so we were pretty much shovel ready on that when, let's see, what was the joke I was gonna make? You know, life is what happens when you're having a strategy session or something like that. So, you know, when we had the CEO departure, and we went through this exit decision, and spring got really complicated really quickly. And that is exactly my excuse, and that's what it is. Otherwise, I think we would have been looking at doing that in the next month or so. Now that quote unquote life has happened, I struggle with board and staff bandwidth to get that done. I am confident that we could work around it because we can do anything if we set our mind to it. So I'm open to either option on that, ASAP, and we just have to buckle down and, carve out, individual board commitment and then staff time to push through that process. But the concept of, doing strategic planning with a potential new board has merit as well. And so I guess to me, it's a little bit of what risk do we put ourselves in by pushing this out to like September or October? Those are my comments. Anybody else? Nicole?
I feel like with these two huge transitions we're making, it would be great to have those guiding principles come from us before we start getting direction from reports given back to us and start making strategy that way. I think it should be, as we're looking for a CEO and as we're thinking about our future power supply, we have this done first and it's clearly articulated.
That's an ASAP vote.
Yeah.
Got it. Tim?
I mean, there is a consideration also of, do we try to set this before there's a new CEO, or do we do that with the participation of a new CEO? And just sort of, I'm not necessarily saying we should do one or the other. So saying there is another moving part.
Using some really good Kohler language. These options in front of us.
It's just another moving part.
Yeah, there you go.
Any other comments related to that?
Kirsten.
Okay, then back to you, Kirsten.
Yeah, I think I would be more in the ASAP category. And it's basically based on something you said, Ted, which is, events have overcome us. There's always time for planning. And if we don't plan, there has to be time for planning, because if we don't plan, we're killing ourselves. So I think, and strategic planning falls into that category. So I think I would like to see us try to stick to spring as much as possible, which means in the next few months. And the board change would be up to a third of the board change, but that's not a majority of the board. So we might be good to go.
Okay. Let me get Rachel.
Yeah, I would just echo, I'm on the ASAP as well. I do think the lift is going to be really hard, especially with the CEO search. But I don't know. I think if we could game those two things out, and we talked earlier about a process map of when some of these bigger decisions or processes are going to be in play, and work backwards from that. That would be really helpful to see where we're doing CEO search and where we're doing strategic planning. Well, we know we're doing CEO search right now, so.
Thanks, Rachel. David, were you?
Yeah, I agree with Nicole. With the power supply, the CEO search, we can do the strategic planning, and that'll actually facilitate the CEO search. You know what type of person you're looking for there. But I think the more important thing is the power supply, get a firm strategy behind that in case there is something dramatic that might change when we do the strategy that would impact what we're looking at. So I think the sooner the better, because all this is coming to a head, but you kick the can down the road, you might have some issues down the road where people are scrambling, not knowing the direction.
Kohler.
So I'm in more of a delayed mode, just because I've had the history here of doing strategic planning in the past. And it's not something that happens very fast. And I think the bandwidth is pretty full right now with the thing we have in front of us. So that would be more like fall for me.
So definitely the bandwidth concern, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. John?
I think the bandwidth concern is definitely an issue. I think I think, the two thoughts here. Can we, I think it would be unproductive to try to do this without, some sort of outside guidance, a facilitator at the very least.
Yeah.
So question number one is, can we find somebody quickly? Do we have somebody in the past that we like? If the answer to that question is yes, then I would maybe offer as a middle ground, rather than doing a full empty whiteboard strategic plan, start from scratch. Treat it more as a refresh of a couple of core areas of what's in place today, and more of a focused exercise around power supply, and a couple of key, I would say perhaps one or two key additional areas, but for me, power supply, and getting square on that. And if we're gonna live on the, whatever the thing says, the percentage of green, fine, then let's agree to it. And if we're gonna modify it, let's sort of do that head on, rather than just reacting to what staff brings to the table through our normal process. And so I would suggest that might be the path forward in the near term, is make that strategic effort much more focused on one or two areas that we know we need to do it for, rather than, mom and apple pie and sort of, a lot of other stuff that gets dragged into these efforts. That's my 2 cents on that.
Focused approach.
Yes, quite narrow, or as narrow as the team is comfortable. And with a facilitator in all cases.
Yeah. And kind of to reiterate on that, I mean, we do have a facilitator selected.
Oh, okay. Great.
Who is a facilitator who helped United with just those same sort of questions that you're asking, right?
Even better. So I would be, despite my personal schedule in the next few months, supportive of sooner rather than later. I think it's important if we can narrow the scope a little bit, and you have a high confidence facilitator.
Yeah.
Even if it's painful right now to do it, it's never a good time. There's never a right time. Right, so let's just take the pain, take it early, and get it done.
Yeah, Rachel, jump in.
That was just an accident, but I agree with everything John just said.
Oh, there, perfect. Yeah, thanks for jumping in.
2 for 2.
And Kirsten?
Yeah, when you look at our strategic plan, and you can find it on our website, there's only first of all, the whole thing is 5 pages, and there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 initiatives. So to John's point of keeping it focused on maybe what we've already got there and making sure that it's good, instead of maybe trying to put any more initiatives in at this time, might be well called for. And then we know exactly what 6 issues we're looking at. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, great. I mean, that level of kind of scoping and focus takes a lot of my hesitation away, and I think largely the reason why this has gotten kicked down the road, month after month, is because I didn't schedule anything, and I've been hesitant with the other things that we're doing. But I think if we can make ourselves believe that it's focused, and we can attack it and get it done, quote unquote, quickly, right? We want to do a good job, not a quick job. That makes me feel a lot better about it, and I would be willing to come at that refreshed now and interact with staff to get a hold of the consultant and kind of crank that process up. So, unless there's anybody that objects to me taking those actions and then coming back to the board with a.
You can repeat that.
Yeah.
Unless
I
there's anybody.
said.
I won't take the action. Can't assign it to me.
We already did. You're offering to take the action.
Yeah, so feel a lot better about a narrowed scope here and therefore the ability to be successful with the bandwidth that we can carve out for it. And so I'd be willing to take one more step here with the consultant that's been identified and try and clarify that process. And hopefully they would agree that a focused refresh is a pretty simple and achievable process. And then that does get us to ASAP, but hopefully without a huge bandwidth problem. So Fuller, you were a little on the push it out there for bandwidth reasons. Is this somewhat convincing?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I was thinking of basically to start over.
You've seen it before.
Yeah, and I didn't want to go through
Yeah,
that. So
okay.
and it's probably necessary. It's a big decision.
Fair enough. Okay, then I'm committed to that. Any other comments on that process?
It'd be useful to maybe circulate, what are those narrower topics?
Yeah. Get it teed up.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to do that.
And get some feedback from the board through an email.
Yeah, talk to the consultant, then feed it back to the board and go, it might look something like this. Give everybody a last call.
Yeah, super. Okay, thanks for that, Kirsten. Made some good progress there. Any other, last minute?
Are we on Zoom or in person next month?
We're still in person next week, or next month is where we're scheduled for. And then we're on Zoom all summer.
Yeah.
For travel schedules.
It's actually a really good question. It's hard to keep up with it.
No, that's the 15th, right?
22nd. So yeah, May's meetings will be late. That's part of how we're able to accommodate some of the things we've talked about as far as board reports and information. And so, yeah, it's 22nd. It was supposed to be our annual meeting scheduled that same day until we needed to continue it.
All right, anything else from anyone? Thank you. Adjourn.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. See you
Bye.
tomorrow.
Thanks, all. Adios.
Rachel, look at your subtext.
Oh, what over 40 minutes?
Okay.
It's on another.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty good.
I didn't have